The night Colton Mercer was supposed to choose Clara Whitlock, he looked past the polished daughter in silk and saw the one no one was meant to notice. Emma, the forgotten sister standing in work boots by the staircase with dirt under her fingernails and truth in her eyes. What happened next destroyed two families, started a range war, and uncovered secrets that could burn an entire empire to the ground. This is the story of the woman who refused to stay invisible, and the choice that changed everything. If you want to see how far this story reaches, drop a comment with your city and hit that like button. Let's see where Emma's journey travels tonight. The Montana wind cut through the Whitlock ranch like a blade that had forgotten mercy. Emma's hands were bleeding again, small splits across her knuckles where the cold and work had worn the skin past its ability to heal. She wrapped them in cloth torn from an old work shirt and kept moving. The firewood wouldn't split itself, and if the house went cold tonight, it would be her fault. Everything was always her fault. "Emma! Where the hell is Emma?" Her father's voice carried across the yard, rough with whiskey and the particular strain of desperation that came from trying to sell something you didn't actually own anymore. The ranch, his dignity, his daughters. She straightened, felt her back protest. 23 years old and her spine already talked back like something twice that age. The axe handle was smooth under her palm, worn down by her grip and her grip alone. Her father had stopped splitting wood the day he'd realized he could make her do it instead. "Here." She didn't shout it. Her father had exceptional hearing when it came to detecting insufficiently enthusiastic compliance. He appeared around the corner of the barn, his face red from cold or anger, or both. Hard to tell the difference anymore. "The Mercers will be here in 2 hours. 2 hours, Emma, and you look like something the dogs wouldn't drag in." She glanced down at herself. He wasn't wrong. Woolwork dress, patched at the elbows, boots that had been her father's before they'd been hers. Hair pulled back in a braid that had given up trying to look like anything but a way to keep hair out of your face while you worked. "I'll clean up. You'll stay out of sight." Her father moved closer, and she smelled the whiskey clearly now. He'd started early today. Bad sign. Clara's going to sit with them. Clara's going to pour the tea. Clara's going to smile and be everything they're expecting. You understand me? Emma understood perfectly. She'd understood for years. Clara was the investment. Emma was the cost of doing business. Useful for labor, unsuitable for display. "I need you to understand something else." Her father's voice dropped, took on that tone that meant he was about to say something he'd convinced himself was paternal wisdom. "Colton Mercer is our last chance. The bank won't extend again. If we don't secure this alliance, we lose everything. Everything, Emma. So whatever you're thinking about doing, I'm not thinking about doing anything. Good. Because if you ruin this, if you embarrass us, if you speak out of turn, if you so much as breathe wrong in front of these people..." He didn't finish. Didn't need to. The threat sat in the air between them like something with weight. He left. Emma picked up the axe again. The thing about being invisible was that you saw everything. You heard things people said when they forgot you were in the room. You learned which floorboards creaked, which conversations stopped when you entered, which smiles were real and which were just arrangements of muscles that meant absolutely nothing. Emma had been invisible for so long she'd almost convinced herself it was a superpower. Almost. Back, inside the house, Clara was having a crisis that involved 3 dresses, 2 hairstyles, and a complete inability to decide which shade of ribbon made her look more like someone worth marrying for money. "Emma!" Clara's voice drifted down from upstairs. "Emma, I need you!" Emma left the firewood half stacked and climbed the back stairs. The ones that didn't creak, the ones reserved for people who weren't supposed to be noticed using them. Clara's room looked like a dress shop had exploded. Fabric everywhere. Their mother's jewelry spread across the vanity like someone had been frantically searching for magic. Their mother had been dead 6 years. The jewelry hadn't been magic when she was alive either. "Which one?" Clara held up 2 dresses that looked identical to Emma's eyes. Blue fabric, careful stitching, the kind of thing that cost more than Emma had ever been allowed to spend on anything. "The left one." "You're not even looking." Emma looked. "The left one." Clara made a noise of frustration and threw both dresses on the bed. She was 19, beautiful in that very specific way that made men stupid and fathers optimistic. Blonde hair that actually held a curl. Skin that didn't crack in the cold. The kind of face that photographs well, which mattered now that photography existed and wealthy families exchanged pictures like trading cards. "You don't understand," Clara said, and she wasn't wrong about that either. "Colton Mercer could have anyone. Anyone, Emma. Why would he choose me?" "Because your father is selling you," Emma thought, but didn't say. "Because his father wants land access and water rights, and a foothold in this valley that's been closed to the Mercers for 2 generations. Because this isn't about choice, it's about transaction. Because you're beautiful," Emma said instead, "and smart, and you'll make him a good wife." The lies tasted like old pennies. Clara turned back to the mirror, studying her reflection like it held answers. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like? To be chosen because someone actually wanted you, not because of what you came attached to?" Emma wondered that every day. She wondered what it would feel like to be wanted at all. "You should wear the blue one," Emma said. "The one on the left. It makes your eyes look darker." Clara smiled, genuine this time, the kind of smile that reminded Emma they used to be close, before their father had decided one daughter was worth grooming and the other was worth working. "Thank you." "Emma, will you help me with my hair?" And because being invisible meant you were always useful, Emma said yes. 6. The Mercers arrived exactly on time, which meant they'd been raised with the kind of money that made punctuality possible. 3 horses, 3 riders. Emma watched from the kitchen window where she'd been stationed with strict instructions to stay there unless specifically summoned. The man in the center had to be Elias Mercer. Even from a distance, he looked like someone who'd spent his life winning arguments through sheer force of presence. Tall, broad-shouldered, with gray hair, and the kind of posture that suggested he'd never doubted himself about anything. The younger man on the left was clearly Colton, late 20s, dark hair, good seat on his horse. He dismounted with the kind of easy athleticism that came from growing up around animals in space. Emma couldn't see his face clearly from this angle, just the general shape of him, tall, lean, wearing clothes that fit properly because he could afford a tailor. The third rider was older, harder-edged, ranch foreman probably, the kind of man who did the actual work while everyone else negotiated over ledgers. Her father emerged from the house with Clara on his arm, dressed in the blue gown, hair arranged in careful curls that Emma's fingers still ached from pinning. They looked perfect. Father and daughter presenting themselves for inspection and approval. Emma's stomach twisted. She turned away from the window and focused on preparing the tea service. English tea, the expensive kind they'd bought specifically for this visit, using money they didn't have to impress people who had plenty. The silver was polished. The cups were china that had belonged to her grandmother. Everything was calculated to suggest a prosperity that existed only in staging. The front door opened. Voices filled the hall. Emma listened to her father's hearty welcome, too loud and too jovial. Listened to Clara's soft greeting, perfectly pitched. Listened to the Mercers respond with the kind of polite formality that came from knowing you held every advantage in the room. "Please, come in. We're honored to have you. Clara, dear, help our guests with their coats." Emma counted to 30, then picked up the tea tray and carried it toward the parlor. This was the part where she delivered the service, received no acknowledgement, and disappeared again. She'd done it dozens of times. The parlor looked different with the Mercers in it. Suddenly, the worn spots on the furniture became obvious. The faded curtains, the way the floorboards sloped slightly near the window, where the foundation had settled unevenly over the years. Elias Mercer sat in the best chair, her father's chair, with the casual assumption of someone who was used to taking the best of everything. Colton stood near the fireplace, and this close Emma could actually see his face. Younger than she'd expected. Serious. The kind of serious that came from being the son of someone like Elias Mercer, and knowing your entire life had already been planned for you. Clara sat on the sofa, perfect posture, perfect smile, hands folded in her lap like she'd been arranged there by a photographer. Emma set the tea service on the table. Her father didn't look at her. Clara didn't look at her. Elias Mercer didn't look at her. But Colton did. Just for a second, a flicker of eye contact that caught Emma completely off guard. She almost dropped the sugar bowl, caught it, set it down carefully, started to turn away. "Thank you," Colton said. Everyone stopped. Her father's expression flickered with something close to panic. Clara's smile tightened. Elias Mercer raised an eyebrow. Emma froze. "You weren't supposed to acknowledge the help. That was the rule. You pretended they were furniture that happened to move." You're welcome, she said, because refusing to respond would have been worse. Emma, her father said, voice tight. That will be all. She left, but she felt Colton's eyes follow her all the way to the door.
Paris.
In the kitchen, Emma's hand shook as she washed the empty serving dishes. That look, that thank you. It shouldn't have meant anything. It didn't mean anything. Men like Colton Mercer didn't see women like Emma. They saw Clara. They always saw Clara, except he'd looked directly at her, and for just a second she'd felt visible, dangerous. That's what visibility felt like, dangerous. From the parlor, she heard the conversation continue, her father's voice dominating, painting pictures of the ranch's prospects that bore no relationship to reality. Elias Mercer asking pointed questions about acreage and water access. Clara laughing softly at something that probably wasn't funny, and underneath it all, Colton's voice, quieter than the others, measured, asking questions that suggested he actually cared about the answers. Emma dried the dishes, put them away, started preparing dinner, venison stew, using the last of the decent meat, stretching it with potatoes and carrots to feed 7 people on provisions meant for 4. She worked automatically, her hands knowing the motions without needing her brain's input. The kitchen door swung open. Emma turned, expecting her father with more orders. It was Colton. He stood in the doorway, looking almost as surprised to be there as Emma was to see him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "I was looking for—" He stopped. "Actually, I don't know what I was looking for." Emma wiped her hands on her apron. "The washroom is back down the hall. Second door on the left." "I know, I saw it. I'm not—" He ran a hand through his hair, and suddenly he looked less like the heir to the Mercer Empire and more like someone who'd gotten himself into a situation he didn't know how to navigate. "Your name is Emma." "Yes." "I'm Colton." "I know." A beat of silence. The kitchen felt too small with him in it. Emma was suddenly painfully aware of her appearance. Work dress, worn apron, hair coming loose from its braid. She probably smelled like firewood and onions. "Your father says you help manage the ranch," Colton said. Emma's laugh came out harsher than she'd intended. "My father says a lot of things." "So you don't help manage it?" "I do most of the actual work. My father manages the talking about it." Colton's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "That's honest." "Honesty's free. Can't afford much else around here." The words were out before Emma could stop them. This was exactly what her father had warned her against, speaking out of turn, revealing things that were supposed to stay hidden, being anything other than invisible. But Colton didn't look offended. He looked interested. "Is that why I'm here?" he asked quietly. "Because your family can't afford much else?" Emma met his eyes directly. Screw it. If she was going to ruin everything, she might as well ruin it completely. "You're here because my father is drowning in debt and thinks selling my sister to your family is his best chance at survival. Your father is here because he wants our water access and our land position. Clara is in that parlor right now performing being the kind of woman you're supposed to want. And I'm here in this kitchen because I'm the daughter nobody's supposed to notice." She waited for him to be shocked, offended, to turn around and march back to the parlor and tell everyone that the older Whitlock daughter was exactly as unsuitable as her father had implied. Instead, Colton leaned against the doorframe. "What do you want, Emma?" The question hit her like a physical blow. No one had asked her that, ever. Not what she could do, or what she should do, or what her father needed her to do. What she wanted. "That's not a relevant question," she said finally. "Why not?" "Because I'm not the one being negotiated over." "Maybe you should be." Emma's heart did something complicated in her chest. "You don't mean that." "Don't I?" Colton pushed off the doorframe, took a step closer. Not threatening, curious, like he was trying to figure out a puzzle. "You know what I've been doing for the last year? Meeting women exactly like your sister, beautiful, polished, perfect. Every single one of them performing the same role. Every single one of them lying about who they actually are because they've been trained to be whatever their fathers think will secure the best match." Clara's not lying. Isn't she? Are you telling me that woman in the parlor is who your sister actually is? Or is she who your father needed her to become? Emma didn't answer because she couldn't, because Colton was right, and they both knew it. "I'm tired," Colton said quietly. "I'm tired of performances. I'm tired of women who've been groomed like show horses. I'm tired of conversations that are really just negotiation tactics disguised as small talk." He looked at Emma with an intensity that made her want to step backward. "You didn't perform. You told me the truth. That was stupid of me. That was brave. Bravery doesn't pay debts." "Maybe it should." Footsteps in the hall. They both heard it. Colton stepped back quickly, and Emma turned to the stove, stirring the stew that didn't need stirring. Her father appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Mercer, we were wondering where you'd gone." His eyes flicked to Emma, sharp with warning. "I got turned around," Colton said easily. "Your daughter was kind enough to redirect me." "Emma is very helpful." Her father's voice made helpful sound like an insult. "The washroom is this way." Colton followed him out, but not before glancing back at Emma one last time. She pretended not to notice, but her hands were shaking again, and this time it wasn't from cold or work or exhaustion. It was from something that felt dangerously close to hope. Batid. Dinner was a performance piece in 7 acts. Act 1. Her father presenting the venison stew like it was something they ate regularly, not a special occasion. Depletion of resources they couldn't afford to deplete. Act 2. Clara demonstrating perfect table manners and the ability to make small talk about absolutely nothing while appearing deeply interested. Act 3. Elias Mercer asking questions about ranch operations that her father answered with vague optimism and no specific numbers. Act 4. The foreman, his name was Marcus, eating in silence and watching everything with the eyes of someone who knew exactly what this dinner actually cost. Act 5. Emma serving food, clearing plates, and existing as furniture that occasionally moved. Act 6. Colton asking questions that suggested he'd actually looked at the property records and knew more about the Whitlock Ranch's situation than her father wanted anyone to know. Act 7. The moment when everything shifted. It happened over dessert, dried apple pie, made with last year's preserves and optimism. Elias Mercer set down his fork and looked at Emma's father with the kind of directness that came from knowing you held all the cards. "The land is worth less than you suggested," Elias said. "The water access is complicated by existing agreements. The cattle count doesn't match your reported numbers." He paused. "You're in worse shape than you indicated in your correspondence." Emma's father's face went pale, then red. "I assure you, I'm not finished." Elias's voice didn't rise, but it filled the room anyway. "However, the location is strategic. An alliance could be mutually beneficial, assuming we're clear about actual value being exchanged. Translation: I know you're desperate, so I'm going to extract every possible advantage." Clara's smile didn't waver, but Emma saw her sister's hands tighten on her napkin. This was the moment. This was where their father sold Clara's future for survival, and everyone at this table would pretend it was romance. "Your daughter is lovely," Elias continued, nodding toward Clara. "Well-educated, presentable, the kind of wife who would represent the Mercer name appropriately." Emma felt sick. This was happening. This was actually happening. "However," Elias said, and that single word hung in the air like a noose, "my son's preferences are ultimately his own. Colton?" Everyone turned to look at Colton. He'd been quiet through most of dinner, watchful. Now he set down his own fork with deliberate care. "May I be excused?" he asked. "I'd like some air." Emma's father started to protest, but Elias waved a hand. "Of course. Emma, perhaps you could show Colton the property. The evening view from the North Ridge is supposed to be impressive." The request hit like a thunderbolt. Emma's father looked like he'd swallowed something toxic. Clara's expression flickered, confusion, then hurt, then careful blankness. "I don't think," her father began. "I think it's an excellent idea," Elias interrupted. "Emma knows the land. Colton needs to understand what he's considering investing in. Practical." The word practical was a weapon. It turned Emma from daughter into employee, from person into tool, and it made refusing impossible. "Of course," Emma said, standing. "I'll get my coat." Oaks. The Montana evening was cold enough to hurt. Emma led Colton away from the house, toward the path that climbed the northern ridge. Neither of them spoke for the first 5 minutes. Emma focused on walking, on breathing, on not thinking about the fact that she'd just been ordered to escort the man who was supposed to be courting her sister. "I'm sorry," Colton said finally. "For what?" "For that. All of that. My father turning your dinner into a business negotiation. Your father—" He stopped. "I'm sorry. You didn't do anything." "Didn't I? I'm here. I'm part of this." He shoved his hands in his pockets. "I'm the reason your father is selling your sister." Emma kept walking. "My father would find someone to sell her to regardless. You're just convenient." "That's bleak." "That's honest." They reached the ridge as the sun dropped toward the horizon, turning the sky into something painters spent lifetimes trying to capture. The valley spread below them, the Whitlock Ranch looking smaller and more fragile from this height, and beyond it, the vast Montana landscape that gave exactly zero consideration to human plans and problems. "Your father is lying to my father," Colton said quietly, "about the ranch's value, about the resources, about everything." "I know. My father knows too. He'll use it against yours. He'll negotiate from a position of complete advantage and take everything he can get while giving back as little as possible. I know that too. And you're all just, what, going along with it?" Emma turned to face him directly. "What choice do we have? You want honesty? Here's honesty. We're 3 months from losing everything. The bank won't extend our credit. We can't survive another bad winter. My father made terrible decisions for years, and now we're paying for them. So yes, he's lying to your father, and yes, your father is going to exploit that, and yes, my sister is being sold like livestock. That's the situation. That's how this works." Colton stared at her. "You're angry." "I'm always angry. I just don't usually get to show it." "Why not?" "Because angry, invisible daughters don't help anyone." The wind picked up, cutting through Emma's worn coat like it wasn't even there. She should have brought something warmer. Should have done a lot of things. "What if you weren't invisible?" Colton asked. "I'm not following." "What if—" He stopped, seemed to be choosing words carefully. "What if you were the one being offered the alliance, not Clara? You." Emma laughed. Actually laughed. "That's insane." "Why?" "Because I'm the wrong daughter. I'm the one nobody's supposed to notice. I'm the labor, not the asset. I'm—" She gestured at herself. "This. I'm this." "What if I noticed?" Colton stepped closer. "What if I've been noticing since the moment I arrived? What if the woman I saw bringing firewood and speaking truth and actually knowing this land is the one I'm interested in, not the performance in the parlor?" Emma's heart was doing that complicated thing again, but harder this time. Painful. "You don't mean that." "I keep saying things, and you keep telling me I don't mean them. Why?" "Because men like you don't choose women like me." "What if I'm not like other men?" "Everyone thinks they're different. Nobody is." Colton flinched. She'd hurt him. Good. Better to hurt him now than let this ridiculous fantasy continue. But he didn't back down. "You're right," he said quietly. "I'm not different. I'm the son of a man who builds empires by finding people's weaknesses and exploiting them. I was raised to see relationships as transactions and marriage as merger strategy. Everything about my life has been calculated to maintain and expand Mercer power." He met her eyes. "And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of being that person. I'm tired of wanting something real and being offered performance. I'm tired of pretending I don't see what's actually in front of me." "And what's in front of you?" "A woman who tells the truth. A woman who knows what real work looks like. A woman who's been holding her family together with her bare hands while everyone else pretends not to notice." He paused. "A woman I'd like to know better." Emma's throat tightened. This was dangerous. This was impossibly, catastrophically dangerous. Hope was a luxury she couldn't afford. "Your father wants Clara," she said. "My father expects Clara. Everyone expects Clara. You can't just—" "Can't I?" "No, you can't. Because I'm not. I can't be what you need. I can't be polished and perfect and presentable. I don't know how to host dinners or manage social situations or be the kind of wife someone like you is supposed to have. All I know is work and survival and holding together things that want to fall apart." "Maybe that's exactly what I need," Colton said. The sun dropped below the horizon. Darkness started claiming the valley. Emma felt something shifting, some fundamental change in the air that had nothing to do with temperature. "If you choose me," she said slowly, "you'll destroy both our families. Your father will be furious. Mine will—" She couldn't finish, couldn't articulate what her father would do. "I know. Clara will be devastated. I know. Everyone will think you're insane. I know." Colton reached out, not touching her, just offering his hand. "Emma, I'm not asking you to be something you're not. I'm asking if you'd be willing to be exactly what you are, somewhere else, with someone who actually sees it." Emma looked at his hand, looked at his face, looked back down the ridge at the ranch house where her father and his father were probably already discussing terms of a deal she wasn't supposed to be part of. She thought about invisible daughters and visible futures, about performance and truth, about chains made of obligation and the terrifying freedom of being chosen for real. "This is insane," she said. "Probably. We barely know each other." "Then let's fix that." "I don't—" Emma stopped, started again. "I don't know how to do this, how to be wanted, how to not be invisible." "Neither do I," Colton admitted. "I only know how to be what people expect. Maybe we could figure out the alternative together." It was the together that broke her. Emma took his hand. Walking back to the house felt like marching toward execution. Colton didn't let go of her hand until they were within sight of the windows, and even then Emma felt the loss of contact like something physical. "I need to do this properly," Colton said, "with both families present." "You're really going to—" "Yes, Colton. They'll destroy you. Your father will—" "Let me worry about my father." He looked at her seriously. "Emma, if you don't want this, tell me now. Tell me now, and I'll walk away. I'll court your sister like I'm supposed to. I'll play the role everyone expects. But if there's any part of you that wants something different, something real, then trust me enough to let me try." Emma couldn't speak, could barely breathe, so she nodded. Once. It was enough. They entered through the front door this time. The parlor had been rearranged for after-dinner coffee. Expensive coffee they couldn't afford, served in cups that were supposed to impress. Her father looked up with an expression of relief that turned to confusion when he saw Emma with Colton. Clara's face was carefully neutral. Elias Mercer watched them with calculating interest. Marcus, the foreman, set down his cup. "This should be interesting," he muttered. "Mr. Whitlock," Colton said formally. "Mr. Mercer, I'd like to make a statement." Emma's father stood. "Of course. Please sit. Have coffee. We have much to discuss regarding—" "I've made my decision," Colton interrupted. The room went silent. Elias Mercer leaned back in his chair, expression unreadable. "That was quick. Sometimes you know," Colton said simply. He looked at Clara. "Miss Whitlock, Clara, you're everything my father suggested. Lovely, educated, gracious. Any man would be fortunate to—" "Don't," Clara said quietly. "Just don't." Colton nodded, turned to Emma. "Emma Whitlock, would you consider—" "No." Elias Mercer's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Absolutely not. Father—" "No. We didn't travel 2 days to make a fool's arrangement. The younger daughter was the discussed terms. The younger daughter is the appropriate match. This is unacceptable." "The appropriate match is the person I choose," Colton said, voice level. "And I choose Emma." Emma's father made a sound like something dying. This is not what we discussed. This is not what was agreed. She's not—" "Not what?" Emma asked quietly. "Not your daughter? Not good enough? Not the one you were willing to sell?" Her father's face went purple. "How dare you speak to me like—" "I dare because someone finally asked what I wanted." Emma looked at Colton. "And because I'm tired of being invisible." Clara stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "Emma, can I speak with you? Please?" They moved to the corner of the room, out of immediate earshot, but still visible to everyone watching this disaster unfold. "You can't do this," Clara whispered urgently. "Emma, you can't. Father will—" "Father will what? Be angry at me? He's been angry at me for years." "That's not—" Clara's eyes were bright with tears. I know I'm supposed to be noble about this. I know I'm supposed to say I want you to be happy. But Emma, I needed this. I needed this to work. I needed... Her voice broke. I needed someone to choose me. Just once. I needed to be the one who mattered. The words hit Emma like fists, because she understood exactly what Clara meant. They'd both been tools in their father's hands, just different kinds. Clara performed and was valued. Emma worked and was ignored. But both of them had been denied the thing that actually mattered, being chosen because someone wanted them, not because of what they could provide. I'm sorry, Emma said, and meant it. Clara, I'm so sorry, but I can't turn this down. I can't go back to being invisible, not now that someone finally sees me. And what about me? Clara demanded. Who sees me? Who sees past the performance to the person underneath? Emma didn't have an answer for that. Behind them, the argument between Colton and Elias had escalated. Throwing away strategic advantage for what? A woman who works like a ranch hand. A woman with no social standing, no connections, no ability to represent our family, and a woman who tells the truth, Colton shot back. A woman who knows the difference between appearance and reality. A woman who could actually help build something real instead of just maintaining appearances. You're a fool. Then I'm a fool who's making his own choice. Emma's father had collapsed back into his chair, looking like the world had ended. Which, for him, it probably had. The Mercer Alliance was supposed to save them. Without it, the bank would foreclose. The ranch would be lost. Everything would end. And it would be Emma's fault for being noticed. I should refuse, Emma said quietly to Clara. I should tell him no. I should let you... Don't, Clara interrupted. Her voice was hard now. Don't you dare. Don't you dare take this because you feel guilty. Don't you dare make yourself invisible again because that's what everyone expects. She wiped her eyes roughly. If you do this, if you actually do this, then do it. Own it. Don't apologize for it. Clara. And Emma? Don't waste it. Don't waste being chosen. Some of us don't get that chance at all. Before Emma could respond, her father surged to his feet. Enough! This is madness. Emma, you will refuse this ridiculous proposal. You will apologize to Mr. Mercer and his son for this disruption. You will... No, Emma said. The room froze. What did you say to me? Emma turned to face her father directly. Her hands were steady. Her voice was clear. I said no. I won't refuse. I won't apologize. I won't disappear just because it's convenient for you. You ungrateful. After everything you've what? Worked me like a hired hand? Ignored me? Treated me like I didn't exist? Made it clear every single day that I was the wrong daughter? The disappointment? The one nobody was supposed to notice? Emma's voice rose. I've held this ranch together with my bare hands while you drank and gambled and made terrible decision after terrible decision. And now someone finally sees that. Someone finally values that. And you want me to refuse it because it's not what you planned? If you do this, you're not my daughter. The words should have hurt. Maybe they did. But Emma had been not his daughter for so long that the official declaration barely registered. Fine, she said. Then I'm not your daughter. I'm someone else's choice. She turned to Colton. If you're serious about this, if you really mean it, then I accept. I'll come with you. I'll try to be whatever you need me to be. And if this is a mistake, if you change your mind tomorrow or next week or next month, at least I'll know what it felt like to be chosen. Just once. Colton crossed the room and took her hand again. I won't change my mind. You might. I won't. You're going to regret this, Elias Mercer said coldly. Both of you. This is not how alliances are built. This is not how business is conducted. This is emotional foolishness that will cost us. Then let it cost us, Colton said. I'd rather pay that price than spend my life with a transaction disguised as a marriage. Elias stood. We're leaving. Marcus, get the horses. Father, we're leaving, now. And when you come to your senses, you'll come home and apologize for this embarrassing display. I'm not coming home, Colton said quietly. I'm taking Emma with me. Tonight. And we're getting married. With or without your blessing. The room went silent again. Emma felt like she was watching this happen to someone else. This couldn't be real. Men like Colton Mercer didn't choose women like Emma Whitlock, didn't throw away strategic alliances for honesty and work-worn hands and someone who told the truth instead of performing perfectly. But Colton was still holding her hand, and his father was leaving, and her father was sitting in his chair looking like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. And Clara was standing by the window crying silently, watching her sister walk into the future that was supposed to be hers. "Emma," Clara said, voice breaking, "you really are leaving?" "I think so." Then Clara crossed the room and pulled Emma into a fierce hug. "Then be happy. Be so happy that it justifies all of this. Be so happy that I can tell myself it was worth it." "I'll try." "Don't try. Do it." Clara stepped back, wiping her eyes. "And Emma, if he ever makes you invisible again, you leave. You understand me? You leave, and you come find me, and we'll figure something else out." Emma nodded, not trusting her voice. Colton was gathering his coat. Marcus had returned with the horses. Elias Mercer was already outside, radiating fury. Emma had no belongings to pack. Everything she owned could fit in a single bag, and none of it was worth taking anyway. At the door, she turned back one last time. Her father wouldn't look at her. Clara was still crying. The house looked exactly the same as it had that morning when she'd been splitting firewood and bleeding from cracks in her hands. But Emma was different. Emma had been chosen, and chosen meant visible. She stepped outside into the cold Montana night and climbed onto the spare horse Marcus brought forward. Colton mounted beside her. They rode away from the only home Emma had ever known, toward a future she couldn't begin to imagine. Behind them, the Whitlock Ranch grew smaller in the darkness. In front of them, the Mercer Ranch waited, along with everything that came with being visible, valued, and voluntarily chosen. For the first time in Emma's 23 years, she wasn't invisible anymore. She just hoped she could survive being seen. The ride to the Mercer Ranch took 3 hours through darkness. So complete, Emma couldn't see her own hands on the reins. She followed the sound of hoofbeats ahead of her, trusted the horse to know the trail better than she did, and tried not to think about what she'd just done. Left her family, accepted a proposal from a man she'd known for 6 hours, destroyed her sister's future, became visible. The last one scared her most. Colton rode beside her when the trail widened enough to permit it. He didn't try to make conversation, which Emma appreciated. What would they even say? The enormity of the decision sat between them like a third rider, silent and massive. Ahead of them, Elias Mercer's rigid posture radiated disapproval so intense Emma could feel it from 20 feet back. Marcus brought up the rear, quiet and watchful. Emma wondered what he thought of all this. Probably that his employer's son had lost his mind. He wouldn't be wrong. The Mercer Ranch announced itself gradually. First better fences, then cleared land, then outbuildings that looked maintained rather than desperate. Finally, the main house appeared, and Emma's stomach dropped. It was huge. Not mansion huge, but ranch house huge in the way that spoke of generations of success and careful expansion. Light glowed from multiple windows. The barn beside it could have held the Whitlock house twice over. Emma had known the Mercers were wealthy. She hadn't understood what that actually meant. They dismounted in the yard. A ranch hand appeared from the barn to take the horses. Young guy, maybe 20, who looked at Emma with undisguised curiosity. Elias stalked toward the house without a word. Marcus followed, then paused. "Miss Whitlock," he said quietly, "welcome to the Mercer Ranch." It was the first kind thing anyone had said to her in hours. Emma's throat tightened. "Thank you." "You're going to need that spine of yours," Marcus continued. "The one you showed back at your father's house. You're going to need it here too." Then he followed Elias inside, leaving Emma and Colton alone in the yard. "I should probably apologize," Colton said. "For what?" "For all of this. For dragging you into my family's dysfunction. For," he gestured at the house, "for not warning you properly about what you were agreeing to." Emma looked at the house, then back at him. "Would warning me have changed anything?" "I don't know, maybe." "Well, I'm here now, so I guess we find out together." Inside, the house was even more intimidating. Wood floors that gleamed, furniture that matched, rugs that looked expensive, everything clean and maintained, and speaking of money, that didn't have to think about itself. A woman appeared from a side room, 50s, gray hair pulled back, wearing a practical dress that still somehow looked elegant. She stopped when she saw Emma, surprise flickering across her face. "Mrs. Chen, this is Emma Whitlock," Colton said. "She'll be staying with us." "Emma, this is Mrs. Chen. She manages the household." Mrs. Chen's expression went carefully neutral. "Miss Whitlock, welcome. I'll prepare a room." She disappeared before Emma could respond. Elias emerged from what looked like an office, still wearing his coat, still radiating fury. "My study," he said to Colton. "Now. Father. Now." Colton glanced at Emma. "I'll be back." "Take your time," Emma said, because what else could she say? "Don't leave me alone in this massive house where I don't belong, and everyone knows it." The study door closed. Emma stood in the entrance hall feeling exactly as out of place as she was. Her boots tracked dirt on the clean floor. Her coat was worn and patched. She probably smelled like horses in fear. "First time at the Mercer Ranch?" Emma turned. Marcus had appeared from somewhere, holding 2 glasses of what looked like whiskey. He offered her one. "I don't drink," Emma said. "You might want to start." When she didn't take it, he shrugged and set it on a side table. "Fair enough, but the offer stands." "What happens now?" Emma asked. "Now?" Elias tears into his son for about an hour, questions his judgment, his sanity, his fitness to inherit. The usual. Then Colton will dig in his heels because whatever else he is, he's not a man who backs down once he's made a choice. And eventually Elias will realize he's not winning this fight and move to damage control. Damage control. "You." Marcus sipped his whiskey. "Figuring out how to present you to the ranch, to the investors, to everyone who expected Colton to marry someone like your sister, making the best of a situation he considers catastrophic." Emma's hands tightened into fists. "I'm not a situation." "No, but you are a problem, at least in Elias's eyes." Marcus studied her. "Question is, are you going to let him treat you like one?" Before Emma could answer, raised voices erupted from the study. Not loud enough to make out words, but the tone was clear. Argument. Anger. Emma flinched. "Don't," Marcus said quietly. "Don't flinch. Don't apologize. Don't shrink. You stood up to your father tonight. You're going to have to stand up to Elias too, or he'll roll right over you." "I don't know how to fight men like him." "Sure you do. Same way you fought your father. With truth. With spine. With refusal to disappear." Marcus finished his whiskey. "Men like Elias are used to people being intimidated by their power. You're not intimidated, you're just practical. Use that." The study door opened. Colton emerged looking tired and angry. Elias followed, his face a mask of control that Emma didn't trust for a second. "Miss Whitlock," Elias said, voice cold and formal. "My son has informed me that you'll be staying here as his guest until wedding arrangements can be made." Guest. Not fiancé, not future daughter-in-law. Guest. "Thank you for your hospitality," Emma said, matching his formality. "Mrs. Chen has prepared the blue room, 2nd floor, east wing. I trust you'll be comfortable." He turned to Colton. "We'll discuss this further in the morning." It wasn't a request. Elias disappeared down the hall. Marcus gave Emma a small nod and followed. Colton ran a hand through his hair, looking like someone who'd just survived something but wasn't sure what. "I'm sorry," he said again. "You apologize a lot." "I have a lot to apologize for." "Do you regret it?" Emma asked quietly. "Choosing me?" Colton met her eyes directly. "No, but I'm realizing I didn't think through everything that choosing you would cost. For either of us." Mrs. Chen reappeared with a lamp. "Miss Whitlock, if you'll follow me." The blue room was twice the size of Emma's room at home. Clean, warm, a real bed with quilts that looked handmade and expensive, a wardrobe, a writing desk, a window that probably had a view Emma couldn't see in the darkness. "There's water in the basin," Mrs. Chen said. "Fresh towels. If you need anything, pull that cord and someone will come." She paused at the door. "Breakfast is at 7. We keep ranch hours here." "Thank you." Mrs. Chen hesitated, then spoke again. "Miss Whitlock, I don't know what happened tonight. I don't know what arrangement brought you here, but this house runs on honesty and hard work. If you're planning to be part of it, those are the currencies that matter." "I understand." "I hope so. Good night." Alone in the blue room, Emma sat on the edge of the bed and tried to process everything that had happened in the last 6 hours. This morning she'd been invisible. Tonight she was a guest in the Mercer house, engaged to a man she barely knew, having destroyed her sister's future and her father's plans. Her hands were still cracked and bleeding. That, at least, was familiar. She washed using water from the basin, hot water which felt like impossible luxury. Changed into the nightgown Mrs. Chen had left folded on the bed. Climbed under quilts that smelled like cedar and something expensive, and lay awake until dawn, wondering what she'd actually agreed to. Morning came with a knock on the door. Emma, who'd maybe slept 2 hours total, struggled to orient herself. Wrong room, wrong bed, wrong everything. "Miss Whitlock?" Mrs. Chen's voice. "Breakfast in 30 minutes." Emma dressed in yesterday's clothes, the only clothes she had, and tried to do something with her hair that didn't look like she'd spent the night wrestling with panic. Failed. Gave up. Headed downstairs following the smell of coffee and bacon. The dining room held a long table that could seat 12. Currently, it held 4. Elias at the head, Colton and Marcus on one side, an empty chair that was apparently Emma's on the other. She slid into it, hyper-aware of 3 sets of eyes tracking her movement. "Good morning," Colton said. "Morning." Mrs. Chen appeared with coffee. Emma accepted it gratefully, wrapped her hands around the cup for warmth and comfort. Elias set down his newspaper. "Miss Whitlock, my son informs me you're familiar with ranch operations." "Yes, sir." "How familiar?" Emma looked up from her coffee. "I can ride, rope, brand, birth livestock, mend fence, track water rights, negotiate with suppliers, manage seasonal labor, and keep books. I can shoot well enough to handle predators. I know which land is good for grazing and which needs rotation. I can tell you which cattle are worth keeping and which should be sold before winter." Silence. Marcus was smiling into his coffee. Colton looked impressed. Elias's expression was unreadable. "Your father didn't mention those qualifications," Elias said finally. "My father doesn't notice what I do. He notices what I fail to do." Emma met his eyes directly. "I'm not Clara. I can't host dinners or make small talk or be decorative, but I can work, and I understand land." "Noted." Elias returned to his newspaper. "You'll ride out with Marcus this morning. He'll show you the property. I want your assessment of our eastern grazing situation by this afternoon." "Father," Colton started, "if Miss Whitlock is going to be part of this family, she should understand what she's joining, unless she was lying about her capabilities." It was a test. Emma recognized tests. She'd been taking them her whole life. "I wasn't lying." "Good. Marcus, you leave in an hour." Elias stood. "Colton, my study. We have business to discuss." The men left. Emma sat alone at the massive table, drinking expensive coffee and wondering what she'd just signed up for. An hour later, she was on horseback following Marcus through land that made the Whitlock Ranch look like a sad joke. Thousands of acres, good fences, healthy cattle, water rights clearly marked, everything maintained, organized, and running like someone actually understood what they were doing. "Eastern grazing," Marcus said, gesturing toward a wide valley. "We're getting pressure from the Caro Ranch. They claim we're overstepping boundaries. Elias says we're not. Situation's getting tense." Emma studied the land, rode the fence line, checked markers, thought about water flow and seasonal patterns and how disputes like this usually started. "You're overstepping," she said finally. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You sure about that? Your fence is 50 yards past the original boundary markers. See those old posts? Those were the originals. Someone moved the fence at some point, recently judging by the wood quality." Emma pointed. "The Caros probably have documentation showing where the real boundary sits. They're not wrong." "That's going to piss off Elias." "You asked for my assessment." "I did." Marcus grinned. "You really don't care about making him happy, do you?" "Making him happy isn't my job. Telling the truth is." They rode back to the main house. Emma was filthy, tired, and hungry. She'd been useful, which felt good. Being useful was comfortable. Being decorative would have been impossible. Elias was in his study. Marcus knocked, entered, pulled Emma in with him. "Well?" Elias demanded. "She's right about the eastern boundary," Marcus said. "We're over the line. The Caros have legitimate grievance." Elias's jaw tightened. "That land has been Mercer land for 5 years," Emma interrupted. Someone moved your fence 5 years ago. Before that, it was Caro land. They probably have the original survey documents to prove it. And you can determine this how? Fence posts, wood aging, original stone markers that weren't moved because they're too heavy to relocate easily. Emma met his glare steadily. You wanted my assessment. That's my assessment. You're in the wrong. The study went silent. Marcus looked like he was trying not to laugh. Elias looked like he was deciding whether to be furious or impressed. If we're in the wrong, Elias said slowly, and we acknowledge it, we lose strategic positioning. We look weak. We encourage other neighbors to challenge our boundaries. If you're in the wrong and you don't acknowledge it, Emma countered, eventually the Caros take it to court or take it to violence. Either way costs you more than 50 yards of grazing land. She's not wrong, Marcus added. The Caros aren't the type to back down. This ends in bloodshed or legal fees that'll make bloodshed look cheap. Elias stared at Emma for a long moment. You have opinions, Miss Whitlock. You asked for them. I'm beginning to regret that. But there was something in his expression that wasn't entirely hostile. Marcus, draft a letter to the Caros, acknowledge the boundary error, propose correction and compensation. Marcus blinked. Sir? You heard me. If Miss Whitlock is correct, and I suspect she is, then we fix it before it becomes a larger problem. He turned back to Emma. You'll accompany Marcus when he delivers the letter. You identified the problem. You can help negotiate the solution.
Father, is that wise?
Colton had appeared in the doorway, sending Emma into what? A negotiation? If she's going to marry you, she needs to understand how this ranch operates, particularly the parts that involve cleaning up messes created by my predecessor. Elias's voice went hard. My father moved that fence. My father created this dispute. I'm tired of defending his mistakes. There was something in that admission that made Emma look at Elias differently. He wasn't just a ruthless empire builder. He was someone stuck maintaining an empire he hadn't entirely wanted. Tomorrow morning, Elias continued, you and Marcus ride to the Caro ranch. You make this right. Yes, sir, Emma said. That evening, Emma finally got time alone with Colton. They walked the property as sunset turned the Montana sky into something painful and beautiful. My father is testing you, Colton said. I know. He's trying to figure out if you're going to break, if you're going to run. If I made a mistake choosing you. Emma stopped walking. Did you? Make a mistake? No, but I'm worried I've put you in an impossible situation. My father he's complicated. He builds empires, but he's not cruel for the sake of cruelty. He's just used to winning. What happens when he doesn't win? I don't know. I've never seen it happen. Colton faced her. Emma, if this becomes too much, if my father pushes too hard, if this life isn't what you thought. I didn't think anything, Emma interrupted. I didn't have time to think. I chose. And now I'm here. And I'm going to figure out how to be here, even if I don't know what that looks like yet. You don't have to prove yourself to him. Yes, I do. He needs to know I'm not going to break, that I can handle this. She paused. And honestly, I need to know that too. Colton reached for her hand. Emma let him take it. They stood watching the sun disappear, and Emma thought about visibility and value and what it costs to be chosen. The Caro Ranch sat at the edge of a valley that looked like it had been carved by something angry. Emma and Marcus rode in slowly, hands visible, making it clear they weren't looking for trouble. The Caro house was smaller than the Mercer place, but well-maintained, functional. A woman stood on the porch holding a rifle, not pointing it, just holding it, making a statement. That's Catherine Caro, Marcus said quietly. She runs the place since her husband died 3 years ago. Smart, tough, and she doesn't forget grudges. Great, Emma muttered. They dismounted. Catherine watched them approach, expression neutral. Mrs. Caro, Marcus said. I'm Marcus Blake, foreman at the Mercer Ranch. This is Emma Whitlock. We're here to discuss the boundary dispute. Discuss? Well, Catherine repeated. That's a polite word for what's been happening. Yes, ma'am, which is why we're here. To make things right. Catherine's eyes shifted to Emma. Whitlock, that name's familiar. My family has a ranch 3 valleys over, Emma said. Small operation, struggling. Most small operations are. Catherine lowered the rifle. You're not a Mercer. Why are you here representing them? Because I'm the one who figured out the fence line was wrong, and because I'm going to marry Colton Mercer, which means I have a stake in fixing things his grandfather broke. Catherine studied her for a long moment. You don't look like what I expected Colton Mercer to marry. I'm not. Good. I don't trust what I expect. Catherine gestured toward the house. Come in. Let's talk. Inside, Catherine poured coffee that was too strong and too hot. Emma drank it anyway. Marcus laid out the situation, the fence error, the proposed correction, the compensation offer. Catherine listened without interrupting. When Marcus finished, she set down her cup. How'd you figure it out? She asked Emma. The fence error, original stone markers, wood aging on the posts, water flow patterns that suggested the boundary was further east than current positioning. You know land. I grew up working it. Catherine nodded slowly. Most people in your position would have kept quiet, defended the Mercer claim. Why didn't you? Emma thought about that. Because being wrong and defending it anyway just makes you wrong longer. And because I don't want to build a life on lies and stolen ground. Even if it costs you? Especially then. Catherine smiled, sharp and genuine. I like you, which is unfortunate because I was prepared to hate anyone associated with the Mercers. She turned to Marcus. Your compensation offer is insultingly low. It's what Elias authorized. Then go back and tell Elias that Catherine Caro says he can shove his insulting offer up his... She stopped, glanced at Emma. You have delicate sensibilities. Not particularly. Good. Tell him he can shove it up his entitled ass and come back with a real number, or I take this to court and make him pay triple what it would cost to settle now. Marcus sighed. Mrs. Caro. Don't Mrs. Caro me. You came here to make things right. Making things right costs money, real money, not pocket change disguised as restitution. She stood. You seem reasonable, Miss Whitlock. Explain to your future father-in-law that I'm not interested in symbolic gestures. I'm interested in actual compensation for actual losses. Emma stood too. I'll explain, but I need to understand something first. If Elias meets your price, pays real compensation, corrects the boundary, acknowledges the error publicly, will that end this dispute? Or are we settling one problem only to discover 6 more? Catherine's expression shifted, something like respect crossing her face. Smart question. Yes, it'll end the dispute. I'm not interested in being enemies with the Mercers. I'm interested in being treated fairly. Big difference. Good. Then I'll make sure Elias understands that, and I'll make sure he pays fairly. You have that kind of influence? Emma thought about Elias, about tests, about proving she could handle this. I will by the time I'm done. Riding back to the Mercer ranch, Marcus was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. You're either very brave or very stupid. Why can't I be both? He laughed. Fair. But Emma, you just promised Catherine Caro something you might not be able to deliver. Elias doesn't take well to being told he has to pay more than he offered. Then he shouldn't have sent me to negotiate if he wasn't prepared for me to actually negotiate. He sent you to deliver a letter. He sent me to clean up a mess. That's what I'm doing. Back at the house, Emma marched directly to Elias's study. Knocked once. Entered before he could respond. Your compensation offer to the Caros is insultingly low, she said without preamble. Catherine Caro rejected it. She wants real compensation or she takes this to court. Elias looked up from his desk, expression dangerous. You don't walk into my study without permission. You sent me to fix a problem. I'm reporting back. Do you want the report or the protocol? Behind Emma, Marcus made a sound that might have been a cough or might have been a strangled laugh. Elias set down his pen very carefully. What does she want? Triple what you offered, which is probably still less than you'd pay in legal fees if she sues. That's extortion. That's compensation for 50 yards of land your father stole and 5 years of lost grazing. She's entitled to it. Emma crossed her arms. You wanted to fix this before it became a bigger problem. This is how you fix it. Pay fairly. Acknowledge wrongdoing. End the dispute. You're telling me how to run my business. You asked me to assess your eastern grazing situation. I assessed it. The problem isn't the land. It's that you tried to fix a theft with pocket change. Elias stood. He was tall, intimidating, used to people backing down when he stood up. Emma held her ground. "You've been here 2 days," Elias said quietly. 2 days? And you're walking into my study making demands. I'm not making demands. I'm delivering information. What you do with it is your choice." They stared at each other. Emma's heart hammered, but she kept her face neutral. She'd learned from her father that showing fear just encouraged bullies. Finally, Elias sat back down. "Triple. She wants triple." "Yes, sir." "And you think I should pay it?" "I think paying it costs less than fighting her. I think acknowledging the mistake costs you less than defending it. And I think Catherine Caro is reasonable enough that settling this fairly means you won't have problems with her again." Elias picked up his pen, tapped it against the desk. "Marcus, draft a new letter. Triple compensation. Boundary correction within the month. Formal acknowledgement of error." "Sir." "You heard me." Marcus left. Emma started to follow. "Miss Whitlock?" She turned back. Elias studied her. "My son chose you because you tell the truth, even when it's inconvenient." "Yes, sir." "That quality is valuable. It's also dangerous. Truth-telling makes enemies. I've noticed. Can you live with that? Being the person who tells powerful people things they don't want to hear?" Emma thought about her father. About years of being invisible because speaking truth was too dangerous. About Clara, performing perfection because honesty wasn't valued. "I'd rather make enemies telling the truth than make friends telling lies," she said. Elias almost smiled. "Almost. You're going to be interesting to have around. Exhausting, but interesting. Is that approval?" "It's acknowledgement. Don't confuse the two." He returned to his paperwork. "You're dismissed." Emma left the study feeling like she'd survived something. In the hallway, Marcus was waiting. "That," he said quietly, "was either brilliant or suicidal." "Still both," Emma said. "You stood up to him." "Someone has to. Most people don't. Most people just nod and agree and hope he doesn't notice them." Marcus grinned. "I think you might actually survive this family." That night, Emma lay in the blue room staring at the ceiling. 2 days at the Mercer Ranch, 2 days of tests and negotiations and proving she wasn't going to break. She was exhausted. She was terrified, and somehow, impossibly, she was starting to think she might actually be able to do this. Be visible. Be valued. Be part of something bigger than survival. The door opened quietly. Colton slipped in, and Emma sat up. "Sorry," he said. "I just wanted to make sure you were okay." "Define okay." He sat on the edge of the bed. "My father told me what happened. With Catherine Caro. With his study. Emma, you don't have to fight him. You don't have to prove—" "Yes, I do," Emma interrupted. "Not to him. To me. I need to know I can stand in this life without disappearing." "You're not going to disappear. You don't know that. Your father is—" She stopped. "He's testing me, pushing me, trying to figure out if I break. And I can't break, Colton. If I break, if I become invisible again, then everything I gave up, Clara's future, my family, everything, it's all for nothing." Colton reached for her hand. "You didn't break today." "Today? But tomorrow? Next week? When something bigger than fence disputes comes along? Then we handle it together." Emma wanted to believe that. Wanted to believe together was possible, but she'd spent her whole life being alone in rooms full of people. Being chosen didn't automatically erase that. "Your father doesn't like me," she said. "He respects you. For him, that's better." "Is it?" "I think so." Colton squeezed her hand. "Emma, I know this is hard. I know you're being tested constantly, but you're passing. Every single test, you're passing. What happens when I fail one? Then we deal with it, together." He stood. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be another long day." After he left, Emma lay back down. Through the window, she could see Montana stars scattered across impossible darkness. She thought about tests and truth-telling and the difference between approval and acknowledgement. She thought about Clara, alone at the Whitlock Ranch, watching her future disappear. She thought about being visible and how much it cost. And she thought about tomorrow and the day after and all the days stretching forward into a future she was building one truth at a time, even if it exhausted her, even if it terrified her, even if she had no idea whether she was actually strong enough to survive being seen. 3 weeks at the Mercer Ranch taught Emma that being visible came with a price list she hadn't known existed. The ranch hands watched her with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. The cook, a woman named Sarah who'd worked for the Mercers for 20 years, treated Emma like an interesting problem that hadn't been solved yet. And the neighboring ranchers who came by on business looked at her like she was a mistake Colton would eventually correct. Emma worked anyway. She rode fence lines with Marcus, helped manage the cattle rotation, and sat in on business meetings where Elias discussed water rights and land acquisitions with investors who didn't bother hiding their disapproval when they saw her there. She wore her work clothes because she didn't own anything else. She kept her hair braided back because it was practical. She answered questions honestly, even when honesty made people uncomfortable. And every night she fell into bed in the blue room exhausted, wondering if she was building something or just surviving until it all fell apart. The morning everything changed started ordinary enough. Emma was in the barn helping one of the younger hands, a kid named Danny, who couldn't have been more than 16, figure out why a mare was favoring her left front leg. The horse was skittish, Danny was nervous, and Emma was trying to be patient. "Easy," she told the horse, running her hand down the leg carefully. "Let me see what's bothering you." The mare shifted, and Emma felt it, heat and swelling just above the hoof. Abscess probably, painful but treatable. "Danny, get me the hoof pick and some warm water. We're going to need to—" "What the hell is she doing in here?" Emma turned. A man stood in the barn entrance, tall, weathered, with the kind of face that suggested he'd spent his life being angry about something. She didn't recognize him, but the way Danny went pale suggested this wasn't someone you wanted to cross. "Mr. Patterson," Danny stammered. "She's just helping with—" "I didn't ask what she's doing. I asked what she's doing here." Patterson moved closer, and Emma caught the smell of whiskey. 10 in the morning and already drunk. Great. "The Whitlock girl, the one who ruined the Clara arrangement." Emma straightened slowly, keeping the horse between them. "I'm examining a mare with a suspected hoof abscess. Do you need something?" "Need something," Patterson repeated, laughing harshly. "Yeah, I need the Mercer Ranch to not be run by some dirt-poor nobody who thinks she can play at being important." "Patterson." Marcus appeared from the tack room, voice hard. "You're drunk. Get out. I'm a business partner. I'll leave when I'm ready." Patterson's eyes stayed on Emma. "You know what you are? You're a mistake, an embarrassment. Colton should have chosen the pretty sister, the one with manners and breeding. Instead, he chose you, the ranch hand in a dress." Emma's hands tightened on the mare's lead rope. She'd heard worse. Her father had said worse. This shouldn't hurt. It hurt anyway. "That's enough," Marcus said, moving between them. "You need to leave, now." "Or what? You'll throw me out? I'm an investor. I have every right to— "You have the right to conduct business, not to harass people." Colton's voice came from the barn entrance, cold and sharp. "And your investment is minor enough that we could buy you out tomorrow without noticing the cost." Patterson turned, swaying slightly. "Your father wouldn't—" "My father isn't here, I am, and I'm telling you to leave before I have Marcus physically remove you." For a moment, Emma thought Patterson might push it, might say something else, might try to assert whatever authority he thought he had. But Colton's expression was granite, and even drunk, Patterson apparently had enough sense to recognize a losing fight. "This ranch is going to hell," Patterson muttered, stumbling toward the entrance. "Mark my words, going straight to hell." He left. The barn settled into tense silence. Danny looked like he wanted to disappear into the nearest stall. Marcus was still standing with his shoulders tight, ready for a fight that hadn't happened. Emma went back to examining the mare's hoof because standing still meant thinking about Patterson's words, and thinking about them meant acknowledging how much they'd landed. "Emma?" Colton's voice was softer now. "Are you—" "I'm fine. Horse needs treatment. Danny, that water?" Danny scrambled to get it. Emma focused on the abscess, on the practical steps of treatment, on anything except the fact that she was apparently a mistake and an embarrassment, and everyone knew it. Later, after the mare was treated and Danny had been sent off with instructions for follow-up care, Emma found herself alone in the barn with Colton. He leaned against a stall door, watching her clean up. "Patterson is an ass," he said. "Patterson is an investor who thinks I'm ruining this ranch. Patterson is drunk half the time and wrong the other half. Who cares what he thinks? Emma set down the hoof pick harder than necessary. I care. Because he's not wrong. I am a nobody. I am dirt poor. I am the wrong choice. And everyone knows it. Emma, don't. Don't tell me it doesn't matter. Don't tell me I'm imagining it. I see how people look at me. I hear what they don't say. I'm the mistake you made because you wanted something real, and now you're stuck with me.
I'm not stuck. I chose you. I keep choosing you. For how long? The words came out sharper than Emma intended. How long before you realize Patterson's right? That I can't be what this ranch needs? That I can't represent the Mercer name appropriately?
Colton pushed off the stall door, came closer. What does representing the Mercer name appropriately even mean? Hosting dinners, making small talk, pretending everything is perfect while secretly everything's falling apart. He caught her hand. I don't want appropriate. I want real. I want someone who tells the truth and works hard and doesn't perform for approval. That's easy to say when you're not the one being judged for it. You think I'm not being judged? Every investor who comes through here questions my decision. My father still looks at you like you're a problem he's trying to solve. Half the neighboring ranchers think I've lost my mind. He squeezed her hand. I don't care. Let them judge. Let them talk. You're still the best choice I ever made. Emma wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that being real was enough, that love, or whatever this was becoming, could outlast judgment and doubt and men like Patterson who saw her as nothing. But belief was expensive, and Emma had learned not to spend what she couldn't afford. That evening brought worse news. Emma was in the kitchen helping Sarah prepare dinner when Marcus found her, expression grim. We've got a problem, he said quietly. Cattle theft, 20 head missing from the western pasture. Emma's stomach dropped. Cattle theft was serious. Cattle theft meant range war territory, the kind of violence that turned neighbors into enemies and reason into blood. When? She asked. Sometime last night. Tracks suggest they were driven toward Caro land. The Caros wouldn't, I know, but the tracks go that direction. And there's already talk among the hands about riding over there to get answers. Marcus ran a hand over his face. This could get ugly fast. Emma dried her hands on a towel. Where's Elias? In town. Won't be back until tomorrow. Colton? Meeting with the hands right now, trying to keep them from doing something stupid. Emma headed for the barn where the meeting was apparently happening. She could hear raised voices before she got there. Angry, aggressive, the kind of energy that led to people getting hurt. Let them steal from us and do nothing? One of the older hands, a man called Stevens. That's weakness. That's being smart, Colton said, but his voice was strained. We don't know who took the cattle. We don't know. Tracks lead to Caro land. That's all I need to know. The Caros just settled a boundary dispute with us fairly. Why would they risk that over 20 head of cattle? Because they can. Because they think we're soft now. Emma stepped into the barn. 12 men turned to look at her, some hostile, some neutral, all clearly wondering what she was doing there. The Caros didn't take the cattle, she said. Stevens laughed harshly. And you know this how? Because I negotiated with Catherine Caro 3 weeks ago. Because she's practical and smart and has no reason to steal from us when she just won a fair settlement. Because cattle theft would risk everything she gained. Emma moved closer. Someone's trying to start a fight between the Mercers and the Caros. Someone who benefits from us being at each other's throats. That's speculation, another hand said. That's logic. Tracks leading toward Caro land doesn't mean the Caros took them. It means someone drove them that direction to make it look like the Caros took them. Or it means the Caros took them and didn't bother hiding their tracks, Stevens shot back. Either way, we can't let this stand. So what's your plan? Emma asked. Ride over there with guns. Start a shooting war based on assumptions? Get people killed over cattle that might not even be on Caro land? Better than sitting here looking weak. Looking weak and being weak are different things. Being smart enough not to fall into an obvious trap? That's strength. The barn went quiet. Emma could feel the tension, the desire for action, the anger looking for a target. These were good men mostly, but good men did stupid things when they felt threatened. Let me talk to Catherine Caro, Emma said. Let me ask if she knows anything about missing cattle. If she does, we handle it. If she doesn't, we figure out who's actually behind this. And if she lies? Stevens demanded. She won't. She's not a liar. Emma looked at Colton. Give me 1 day. If I can't get answers, then we figure out next steps. But please don't start a war over assumptions. Colton met her eyes, and she saw the calculation there. He wanted to support her. He also couldn't afford to look weak in front of his men. 1 day, he said finally. Emma goes to the Caro ranch, talks to Catherine, gets answers. If she comes back empty, we regroup. Stevens looked like he wanted to argue, but couldn't quite find grounds to. The meeting broke up with muttered dissatisfaction and the kind of energy that suggested this wasn't over. Outside, Marcus caught up with Emma. That was either very brave or very stupid. I know, I'm getting that a lot lately. She looked at the darkening sky. I need to leave at dawn. Can you come with me? Wouldn't miss it, though I hope you know what you're doing. I have no idea what I'm doing, but sitting around waiting for violence seemed worse. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She paced the blue room, thinking about cattle theft and range wars and the possibility that she was about to make everything worse. Around midnight, Colton knocked softly and entered. You should rest, he said. Can't. Too much thinking. He sat on the edge of the bed, looking tired. The hands don't trust you yet. They think you're soft, that you don't understand how things work out here. I understand exactly how things work. Violence leads to more violence. Assumptions lead to mistakes. And jumping to conclusions gets people killed. I know, but Emma, if you're wrong about the Caros, if they did take the cattle, then I'm wrong and we deal with it. But I don't think I'm wrong. She sat beside him. Someone's trying to manipulate us. Someone who wants the Mercers and Caros fighting. Who benefits from that? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. Colton reached for her hand. I want to come with you tomorrow. You can't. The hands need to see you here, staying calm, being in control. If you ride off to the Caros with me, it looks like you don't trust them. Or worse, like you don't trust me to handle it. I do trust you. Then prove it. Let me do this. He kissed her forehead. Be careful. Always. Dawn came cold and early. Emma dressed in her work clothes, braided her hair tight, and met Marcus in the barn. They rode out as the sun was just breaking the horizon, two figures against vast Montana landscape that didn't care about human problems. The Caro ranch looked the same as it had 3 weeks ago. Catherine was in the yard repairing a saddle, rifle, within reach but not in hand. She looked up as they approached, expression cautious. Miss Whitlock. Marcus. This is unexpected. Emma dismounted. We have a problem. 20 head of cattle missing from our western pasture. Tracks lead toward your land. Catherine's expression went hard. And you think we took them? No, I think someone took them and made it look like you did. I'm here to ask if you've seen or heard anything unusual. Why would I tell you if I had? Because you're smart enough to know that if we go to war over this, both our ranches lose. Because you settled the boundary dispute fairly and have no reason to risk that over cattle. And because I don't think you're a thief. Catherine studied her for a long moment. You trust easy. I trust honestly, and you've been honest with me. Catherine set down the saddle. I haven't seen your cattle, but I did see something odd 2 nights ago. Riders moving fast through the valley, driving livestock. Too dark to see clearly, but they were heading north. How many riders? 3, maybe 4. Professional. Knew what they were doing. North, Marcus said quietly. That's Patterson land. Emma's mind raced. Patterson. The drunk investor who'd confronted her in the barn, who'd been angry about the Mercer-Caro settlement, who'd called her a mistake. Patterson benefits from us fighting, Emma said slowly. If the Mercers and Caros go to war, we both lose resources, land values drop, and someone with cash could buy up property cheap. Patterson's been trying to expand his holdings for years, Catherine said, but no one will sell to him. He's got a reputation for being difficult. So he creates chaos and profits from it. Emma looked at Marcus. We need proof. Proof means going on to Patterson land, uninvited, looking for stolen cattle. Marcus shook his head. That's dangerous. More dangerous than a range war? Different kind of dangerous. Catherine grabbed her rifle. I'm coming with you. Emma blinked. What? If Patterson's trying to start trouble between our ranches, that makes it my business too. And you'll need backup. She called toward the house. James, get the horses. A young man appeared, early 20s, clearly Catherine's son. He had the same sharp eyes, same practical energy. What's happening? He asked. Cattle theft, possibly by Patterson. We're going to verify. Catherine checked her rifle. You're staying here. Like hell I am. James, if this goes bad, you need more than 3 people. I'm coming. Catherine looked like she wanted to argue, but recognized a losing fight. Fine, but you follow my lead. No heroics. 20 minutes later, 4 riders headed north toward Patterson Land. Emma's heart hammered. This was probably stupid, definitely dangerous, but sitting around waiting for violence had never been her style. Patterson's ranch sat in a narrow valley with steep sides, defensible, isolated, and currently showing signs of recent activity. Fresh tracks, disturbed earth, and in a pasture near the back, cattle that definitely didn't belong there. There, Marcus said quietly, pointing. That's Mercer stock. I can see our brand from here. We need to get closer, Emma said. Make sure before we... Hey! The shout came from behind them. Emma turned to see 2 men on horseback, both armed, both looking unfriendly. This is private property. We're looking for stolen cattle, Catherine said calmly, and we found them. The men exchanged glances. You need to leave. We need to take back what was stolen from us. Lady, I'm telling you nicely, leave before this gets ugly. Marcus's hand moved toward his rifle. Emma put her hand on his arm, stopping him. We don't want trouble, she said. We just want our cattle back. Then you should have kept better track of them. Hard to keep track when someone steals them in the middle of the night and drives them here to frame the Carrows. Emma's voice was steady, despite her racing heart. Patterson put you up to this, didn't he? Steal Mercer cattle, drive them toward Carrow land, start a fight. What's he paying you? One of the men shifted uncomfortably. I don't know what you're... Yes, you do. Question is whether you want to be part of cattle theft and attempted range war instigation, because that's what this is. And when it comes out, and it will come out, you'll be charged along with Patterson. She's bluffing, the other man said. Am I? There are 4 of us here as witnesses. We can see the stolen cattle. We can testify about this conversation. Emma gestured at the valley. Is whatever Patterson's paying you worth prison time? The men looked at each other again. The first one's resolve was clearly wavering. Look, he said finally, we're just hired hands. Patterson told us to move the cattle, said they were his. We didn't know. You knew, Emma interrupted, but you're in too deep to back out now. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to help us drive these cattle back to Mercerland. You're going to tell the truth about who hired you, and in exchange, we'll testify that you cooperated. Patterson will kill us. Patterson will try to kill you either way. At least this way you're on the right side when the law gets involved. More silence. Emma could feel Catherine beside her, tense and ready. Marcus was watching both men carefully. James had his rifle ready, but not raised. Finally, the first man sighed. 20 head, right? In that back pasture? 20 head. We'll help you drive them out, but Patterson finds out we helped you, said. Then you come work for the Mercers or the Carrows, Catherine said. We don't abandon people who do the right thing. It took 2 hours to drive the cattle back toward the boundary between Mercer and Carrow land. The 2 ranch hands, names were Cole and Ben, talked while they rode, confirming what Emma had suspected. Patterson had hired them to steal the cattle, drive them toward Carrow land, and create the appearance of Carrow theft. He'd been planning to buy up land cheap once the resulting violence destabilized both ranches. How many times has he done this? Emma asked. This is the first, Cole said, but he's been talking about it for months, waiting for the right opportunity. The Carrow settlement was the opportunity, Marcus said grimly. Fresh agreement, tension still high. Perfect time to create doubt. They reached Mercerland as the sun started dropping toward the horizon. The ranch hands were there waiting, including Stevens, who looked disappointed that they'd solved this without violence. Found the cattle? Emma said, climbing down from her horse. Patterson took them. His men confessed. We have the full story. Stevens looked at Cole and Ben. These 2? These 2 are going to testify. They cooperated. They helped us return the cattle. Emma's voice went hard. And if anyone has a problem with that, take it up with me. No one took it up with her. That evening, Elias returned from town to find his stolen cattle returned, Patterson's scheme exposed, and Emma sitting in his study with the full report. He listened without interrupting, face unreadable. You rode onto Patterson's land, he said when she finished, without my permission, without backup beyond Marcus and the Caros. Yes, sir. You confronted armed men, negotiated with thieves, brought back our cattle, and secured testimony that'll put Patterson in prison. Yes, sir. Elias leaned back in his chair. You could have been killed. I could have let your ranch hands start a war. Seemed like the worst option. It was reckless. It was necessary. They stared at each other. Emma refused to look away, refused to apologize for doing what needed doing. Finally, Elias almost smiled. Almost. You're either very stupid or very brave. I haven't decided which. Why can't I be both?
He actually laughed at that. You and Marcus, same answer. He stood. Patterson will face charges. The hands you brought back, Cole and Ben, will work here. We'll pay them fairly and protect them from retaliation. And you, Miss Whitlock, will stop taking these kinds of risks. I can't promise that. I know. Which is why you're exhausting. But there was something like approval in his voice now. Real approval, not just acknowledgement. Catherine Caro helped you?
She did. She saw Riders 2 nights ago, gave us the lead that pointed to Patterson. So the settlement you pushed me into paid off. Yes, sir. Noted. He moved toward the door, then paused. Emma, my son chose well. I thought he'd made a mistake. I was wrong. The words hit Emma like a physical blow. She'd been waiting for approval, for acceptance, for proof that she wasn't the mistake Patterson had called her. And here it was. Not effusive, not emotional, just simple acknowledgement from a man who didn't give acknowledgement easily. Thank you, she managed. Don't thank me. You earned it. He left. Emma sat alone in the study, shaking slightly from adrenaline and exhaustion and the relief of being seen, truly seen, as someone who belonged. She'd passed another test. Maybe the biggest one yet. Later that night, Emma found Colton on the front porch watching stars emerge. She sat beside him, and he put his arm around her. I heard what happened, he said. All of it. Your father's mad. My father's impressed. There's a difference. He pulled her closer. You could have been killed today. I know. And you went anyway. Someone had to. It didn't have to be you. Emma looked at him. Yes, it did. Because I'm not just your fiancé or your father's problem to solve. I'm part of this ranch now, and that means protecting it. Even when it's dangerous? Especially then. She leaned against him. I was invisible for so long, Colton. I can't go back to that. I can't be the person who hides while other people handle the hard things, even if it scares me, even if I might fail. You didn't fail today. Today. But tomorrow's coming, and the day after that. And eventually I probably will fail at something, mess up, make things worse. She paused. Will you still want me then? Emma, I wanted you when you were covered in firewood dust and telling me harsh truths about your family. I wanted you when you walked into my father's study and demanded fair compensation for the Caros. I wanted you when you stood up to Patterson and when you rode into potential danger to prevent a war. He tilted her face toward his. I'm not going to stop wanting you because you're human and imperfect. That's the whole point. You're real. Emma kissed him then, properly, for the first time since leaving the Whitlock ranch. And it felt like sealing something, like making visible what had been forming between them for weeks. When they broke apart, she was crying. Sorry, she said, wiping her eyes. I don't cry. I don't usually. It's okay to cry. You almost died today. You're allowed to feel that. I'm allowed, Emma repeated, like the concept was foreign. No one's ever said that to me before. Well, I'm saying it now. You're allowed to be scared. You're allowed to cry. You're allowed to not be perfect all the time. Emma leaned against him again, letting herself be held, letting herself be vulnerable in a way she'd never been able to afford before. And for the first time since coming to the Mercer Ranch, she thought maybe she could actually build a life here. Not a perfect life, not an easy life, but a real one, with someone who saw her completely and chose her anyway. The stars wheeled overhead, indifferent and eternal. The Montana night wrapped around them. And Emma Whitlock, the forgotten daughter who'd refused to stay invisible, let herself believe in something she'd never thought possible. That being chosen could last. That being seen didn't have to be dangerous. That home could be something you built instead of something you survived. She was still scared, still exhausted, still wasn't sure she was strong enough for everything coming. But tonight, held by someone who actually wanted her, Emma let herself rest. Tomorrow would bring new tests, new challenges, new opportunities to fail or succeed. But tonight, she'd earned the right to simply be. Visible, valued, voluntarily chosen, and desperately, impossibly beginning to hope that it might actually be enough. The peace lasted exactly 6 days. Emma should have known better, should have recognized that solving one problem just cleared space for the next one to arrive. But she'd let herself believe, just for a moment, that things might actually settle into something resembling normal. The illusion shattered on a Tuesday morning when a rider came through the gates at full gallop, horse-lathered, and the man's face pale with whatever news he was carrying. Emma was in the yard working with Danny on saddle repair when the commotion started. She watched Marcus intercept the rider, saw their hurried conversation, saw Marcus's expression go from curious to grim. Then Marcus was heading toward the house at a run, and Emma's stomach dropped. She followed, found Marcus in Elias's study with the door half open, their voices raised. "Can't be certain it's her," Elias was saying. "The description matches. Young woman, blonde, traveling alone. Showed up at the Chapman Ranch 3 days ago asking for work." Marcus's voice was tight. "Emma needs to know. Emma needs to focus on what? Pretending her sister doesn't exist?" Marcus's voice rose. "Claire's out there alone, Elias. Whatever happened at the Whitlock Ranch after Emma left?" Emma pushed the door open fully. Both men turned to look at her. "Clara's where?" she demanded. Marcus and Elias exchanged glances. Finally, Marcus spoke. "The Chapman Ranch, about 40 miles west. A woman matching Clara's description showed up asking for work. She gave a false name, but the description, It's her," Emma said flatly. "What happened?" "We don't know. The rider just brought word, no details beyond Emma was already moving. I need a horse, fresh one, and supplies for 2 days' ride." "Emma, wait." Elias stood. You can't just ride out without you. Watch me. It might not be her. It might be. It's her." Emma's voice cracked slightly. "And if she's using a false name and asking for work 40 miles from home, something went very wrong. So I'm going. Are you going to try to stop me?" Elias looked at her for a long moment. "No, but you're not going alone. Marcus goes with you, and you take supplies, money, and weapons. If your sister is in trouble..." "When my sister is in trouble," Emma corrected. "Clara doesn't run unless there's no other choice." 30 minutes later, Emma and Marcus were riding west with saddlebags packed and rifles secured. Colton had tried to come too, but Emma had stopped him. "Your father needs you here," she'd said, "and I need to do this. Clara's my sister. My responsibility. Emma, please, let me have this." So Colton stayed, and Emma rode toward whatever disaster had driven Clara from the only home she'd ever known. They pushed hard, stopping only to rest the horses. Marcus didn't ask questions, which Emma appreciated. She didn't have answers anyway, just mounting dread and the sick certainty that this was somehow her fault. She'd left Clara behind. She'd taken the future that was supposed to be Clara's, and now Clara was alone and scared and using a false name at some ranch 40 miles from anywhere. The Chapman Ranch appeared at sunset on the second day, smaller than the Mercer spread, but well-maintained. A woman was in the yard hanging laundry, and she looked up warily as Emma and Marcus approached. "Help you?" she called. "I'm looking for my sister," Emma said, dismounting. "Blonde, 19, about this tall. Might be calling herself something other than Clara Whitlock." The woman's expression shifted, recognition and something that looked like relief. "You're Emma. She said you'd probably come if you heard." "She's here?" "In the house. Been helping with cooking and mending for 3 days. Paid work, though we don't usually hire. But she seemed..." The woman paused. "Desperate." Emma's chest tightened. "Can I see her?" "Of course. Come on." The house was small but clean. The woman, Mrs. Chapman, she introduced herself, led Emma to a back room where Clara sat mending a torn work shirt. She looked up when the door opened, and Emma's heart broke. Clara was thinner. Her hands were red and raw from work she wasn't used to. Her hair was pulled back in a simple braid, no careful curls, and her eyes were hollow in a way that spoke of things Emma didn't want to imagine. "Emma," Clara whispered. Emma crossed the room and pulled her sister into a fierce hug. Clara held on like she was drowning, and Emma felt her shaking. "I've got you," Emma said. "Whatever happened, I've got you." Clara broke then, sobbed against Emma's shoulder in a way that suggested she'd been holding this in for days. Emma just held her, making soothing sounds that meant nothing and everything, until Clara finally pulled back and wiped her eyes. "I'm sorry," Clara said. I didn't want you to see me like this." "Don't apologize, just tell me what happened." Clara took a shaky breath. "After you left, Father got worse. The drinking, the anger. He blamed me for not being enough to secure the Mercer alliance. Said if I'd been better." She stopped, swallowed hard. He started arranging other meetings, other potential matches. Men who'd heard the Whitlock Ranch was desperate and came looking for a bargain. Emma's hands clenched into fists. "Clara!" "One of them was worse than the others. Older, mean drunk. Father didn't care. Said I had a responsibility to save the family, that it was my duty." Clara's voice went flat. "He signed a marriage contract 3 weeks ago, without asking me. Just signed it." "Who?" "Thomas Reeves, owns property north of Father's ranch, 47 years old. 2 previous wives, both dead. Everyone knows he—" Clara stopped. "Everyone knows what he is, but he had money. That's all Father cared about." Emma felt sick. Thomas Reeves, she knew the name, knew the reputation, a man who bought wives the way other people bought livestock. "The wedding was supposed to be last week," Clara continued. "Father told me the night before, said I'd go through with it, or he'd—" She shook her head. "It doesn't matter what he said. I couldn't do it, Emma. I couldn't marry that man, so I ran." "How'd you get away?" "Took one of the horses in the middle of the night, rode until I couldn't ride anymore. Ended up here. Mrs. Chapman took me in, gave me work." Clara looked at Emma directly. "I don't have anywhere else to go. Father will be looking for me. Reeves will be looking for me. The contract doesn't matter if you didn't sign it," Emma interrupted. "Father can't sell you against your will. That's not— Father can do whatever he wants. You know that. And if Reeves wants me badly enough—" Clara's voice cracked. "Emma, I'm so scared. I don't know what to do. I don't have money or skills or anywhere safe to go. I've been cleaning and mending to earn my keep here, but Mrs. Chapman can't hide me forever." Emma's mind raced. Clara couldn't go back to their father, couldn't marry Reeves, couldn't stay at the Chapman Ranch indefinitely, which left exactly one option. "You come with me," Emma said. "To the Mercer Ranch." Clara stared at her. "I can't. Emma, I can't show up at the ranch where I was supposed to be chosen and ask for—" "You're not asking. I'm offering. You're my sister. You need help. We have space." Emma squeezed Clara's hands. "Please, let me do this." "What if your father-in-law says no?" "Then I'll deal with it. But Clara, you can't stay here, and you can't go back, so please, trust me." Clara looked like she wanted to argue, wanted to refuse, but desperation won over pride. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." Mrs. Chapman provided Clara with a spare set of traveling clothes and refused payment for the 3 days of work. "She's a good girl," Mrs. Chapman said quietly to Emma. "Whatever trouble she's running from, I hope you can keep her safe from it." "I'll try," Emma said, knowing it wasn't enough but hoping it would have to be. They rode back to the Mercer Ranch with Clara between Emma and Marcus, silent and tense. Emma tried to think through how to present this to Elias, how to explain that she was bringing home the sister who was supposed to be the original alliance, the woman Colton was supposed to have chosen. This was going to be a disaster. They arrived after dark. The ranch was quiet, most of the hands already in the bunkhouse. Emma led Clara toward the main house, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. Colton met them at the door, relief flooding his face when he saw Emma. Then he noticed Clara, and his expression went carefully neutral. "Clara," he said, "this is unexpected." "I'm sorry," Clara said immediately. "I know I shouldn't be here. I know this is—" "She's in trouble," Emma interrupted. "Our father tried to force her into marriage with Thomas Reeves. She ran. She needs help." Colton's expression darkened. "Reeves? I know that name." "Everyone knows that name," Marcus said grimly. He dismounted and was standing behind them. "He's bad news. If her father actually signed a contract, where's your father?" Emma asked Colton. Study. With investors. Emma, maybe this isn't the best time. There's never going to be a good time. Emma took a breath. Stay with Clara. I'll talk to him. She knocked once on the study door and entered before Elias could respond. He was at his desk with two men Emma vaguely recognized, investors probably, based on their expensive clothes and calculating expressions. Emma, Elias said, surprise flickering across his face. I wasn't expecting you back tonight. Did you find? I found Clara. She's here. She's in trouble and she needs help. The investors exchanged glances. Elias's jaw tightened. Gentlemen, would you excuse us? We'll continue this discussion tomorrow. The men left, curiosity plain on their faces. Great. This would be all over the territory by morning. Once they were alone, Elias spoke. Explain. Emma did. Laid out everything Clara had told her about their father, about Reeves, about the marriage contract, and Clara's escape. Elias listened without interrupting, his expression growing progressively darker. So your sister is here, he said when Emma finished. Asking for sanctuary. She's not asking. I'm offering. She's family. She needs help. Emma met his eyes directly. If you have a problem with that, then it's my problem to solve. But she's staying. She's the woman my son was supposed to marry. She's my sister. Those two things create complications you might not have considered. Elias stood, moved to the window. Clara Whitlock showing up here after running from an arranged marriage. The gossip alone will be, I don't care about gossip. You should. Gossip becomes reputation. Reputation affects business. And right now we're already dealing with whispers about my son's choice of bride, adding the rejected sister to our household. She wasn't rejected, Emma snapped. Colton chose differently. That's not rejection. To everyone else it is. And now she's here, rescued by the woman who took her place. Elias turned back to face Emma. I'm not saying I won't help her. I'm saying you need to understand what this looks like. I understand exactly what it looks like. I also understand that Clara has nowhere else to go. That our father is a drunk who tried to sell her to a man everyone knows is dangerous. That she's scared and alone and needs someone to give a damn about her well-being more than they care about appearances. Emma's voice rose. So yes, it's going to look complicated. Yes, people are going to talk. But if you think I'm going to turn my sister away because it might affect your reputation, you don't know me at all. Silence filled the study. Elias stared at her and Emma stared back, refusing to back down. Finally, Elias sighed. She can stay, temporarily, until we figure out a more permanent solution. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thomas Reeves doesn't strike me as the type to let a contracted bride simply disappear. If he comes looking for her, then we deal with it. We, Elias repeated. You keep saying we, as if you're already part of this family. Aren't I? Something shifted in Elias's expression. Yes, I suppose you are. Which means when Reeves shows up, and he will show up, you'll let me handle it. Understood? If by handle it, you mean protect Clara, then yes. If by handle it, you mean negotiate her return to our father, I mean protect her, Elias interrupted. Whatever else I am, I don't hand women over to men like Reeves. But Emma, this is going to get ugly. Your father will come. Reeves will come. They'll demand Clara back. They'll threaten legal action. Let them threaten. You say that now, but when they're standing in this house making accusations and demands, then I'll stand between them and my sister, just like you'd stand between your son and anyone threatening him. Elias looked at her for a long moment. You're very stubborn. You say that like it's news. He almost smiled. Go. Get your sister settled. We'll deal with the rest tomorrow. Emma found Clara in the entrance hall looking lost and overwhelmed. Colton was with her, making awkward small talk that wasn't quite working. Clara's relief when she saw Emma was palpable. It's okay, Emma said. You can stay. Elias approved it. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Emma, I don't know how I'll ever... You don't have to repay anything. You're family. That's what family does. Mrs. Chen appeared with her usual impeccable timing. Miss Clara, I'll show you to a room. You must be exhausted. Clara followed Mrs. Chen upstairs, leaving Emma and Colton alone. "That was brave," Colton said quietly. "Standing up to my father like that. That was necessary. Clara needed help. I wasn't going to let reputation or politics stop me from giving it. I know, it's one of the things I—" He stopped, seemed to reconsider his words. "It's one of the things that makes you remarkable." Emma leaned against him, suddenly exhausted. "Your father thinks this is going to get ugly. He's probably right, but Emma, you did the right thing. Whatever happens next, you did the right thing. Tell me that when Reeves shows up demanding his contracted bride." "I'll tell you that now and then, and every day after." Colton wrapped his arms around her. "You saved your sister. That matters more than anything else." Emma wanted to believe that. Wanted to believe that doing right counted for something in a world that seemed to value power and appearances over everything else. But she'd learned not to count on belief. She'd learned to count on action instead. The storm arrived 4 days later. Emma was in the barn helping Danny with the horses when she heard shouting from the main yard. She ran outside to find her father's wagon in front of the house, and standing beside it were 2 men who made her blood run cold. Her father, looking drunk and desperate, and Thomas Reeves, looking exactly like what he was, a man who'd paid for something he considered his property and had come to collect it. Elias was already outside, with Colton and Marcus flanking him. The ranch hands had gathered, sensing trouble, and standing on the porch, pale and shaking, was Clara. "Where is she?" Reeves demanded. "Where's my bride?" "Your bride." Elias's voice was ice. "I don't see a bride here. I see a young woman who ran from a forced marriage. A legal marriage, contracted and signed. Her father gave consent."
"I didn't," Clara said, voice trembling but clear. "I didn't consent, and I won't marry you." Reeves turned his attention to Clara, and the look on his face made Emma's stomach turn. "You'll do what you're told, girl. Contract's legal. You belong to me now." "She belongs to herself," Emma said, stepping forward. "And she's not going anywhere." Her father finally noticed her. "Emma, of course you're involved in this. You couldn't just ruin your own prospects. You had to ruin your sister's too." "I saved her from a nightmare. That's not ruin." "You saved her from duty, from responsibility, from doing what needed to be done to save the family." Her father's voice rose. "The ranch is failing because of you, because you seduced Colton Mercer away from the proper arrangement, because you couldn't accept your place." "My place was invisible," Emma shot back. "My place was working myself to death while you drank away any chance we had of survival. Don't blame me for the failures you created." "Enough," Elias interrupted. "Mr. Whitlock, Mr. Reeves, Clara Whitlock is currently a guest on my property. She's staying here of her own free will. If you have a legal dispute, take it to court, but you won't intimidate her and you won't remove her by force." "This is family business," Reeves said coldly. "Her father signed a contract. That makes her mine." "A contract signed under duress without the bride's consent isn't legal," Colton said. "Any judge would void it." "Maybe. Maybe not. But either way, I paid good money for her. And I'm not leaving without either the girl or my money back." "How much?" Emma asked. Everyone turned to look at her. "How much did you pay?" Emma repeated. "For the marriage contract. What's the amount?" Reeves's eyes narrowed. $2,000. Emma's heart sank. That was more money than she'd ever seen in one place, more than the Whitlock Ranch probably had in assets. Her father must have been truly desperate to accept that amount from someone like Reeves. "I'll pay it," Emma said. "Give me time to arrange it. I'll pay your $2,000. Clara goes free." "Emma, no," Clara protested. "You can't." "I can and I will." Emma looked at Reeves. $2,000. Full repayment of the contract price. In exchange, you void the contract and leave Clara alone. "And where exactly are you going to get $2,000? Her father demanded. "You have nothing. You are nothing." "She has me," Colton said quietly. "And we'll provide the money." "Colton," Elias started. "We'll provide it," Colton repeated firmly. $2,000 to void the contract. That's the deal. Reeves considered this. Emma could see the calculation in his eyes. Take the money or keep pushing for Clara. Money was certain. Clara would be difficult, especially with the Mercers protecting her. 3,000,
Reeves said finally. "For my trouble and time. 3,000 and the contract's void." "That's extortion," Marcus said.
"That's business." Reeves smiled, and it was a terrible smile. 3,000 or I take this to court. And courts around here tend to side with valid contracts and lawful fathers. "Fine," Emma said, her voice steady despite the rage burning through her. 3,000. But I want the contract voided in writing, legally, with witnesses.
"Done." Reeves pulled a document from his coat. He'd come prepared, the bastard. "Have your lawyer draw up the agreement. Money in exchange for voided contract. I'll sign it." "Tomorrow," Elias said. "We'll have everything prepared tomorrow. You'll get your money, Clara gets her freedom." "And if you try to back out," Reeves started.
"We won't," Elias interrupted. "The Mercers stand by their agreements. But Mr. Reeves, if you ever come onto my property again uninvited, if you ever approach Clara again, if you even speak her name, you'll deal with me. And I promise you won't enjoy that conversation." Something in Elias's tone made even Reeves pause. He nodded once, got back in the wagon beside Emma's father, and they left. The yard stayed silent for a long moment after they were gone. Then Clara collapsed, and Emma caught her. "I'm sorry," Clara sobbed. "Emma, I'm so sorry. $3,000 is money," Emma said firmly. "Money we'll figure out. You're safe. That's what matters. But 3,000 is less than your life is worth." Emma helped Clara stand. "Come on, let's get you inside."
That evening, after Clara was settled and Emma had assured her approximately 50 times that yes, they would handle the money, Emma found herself in Elias's study with Colton and Marcus. 3,000 is significant, Elias said bluntly. "Not impossible, but significant." "I'll pay it back," Emma said immediately. "However long it takes. I'll work."
"You're already working," Elias interrupted. "And you're about to marry my son, which means your family. Which means Clara's debt is family debt. We handle it together. I can't ask you to—"
"You're not asking. I'm offering. Same thing you told Clara." Elias pulled out a ledger. "We'll structure it as a loan to your father with Clara's freedom as collateral. That makes it a business transaction, which protects us legally. Your father keeps the land temporarily, but Clara is released from all obligations."
"My father will gamble it away," Emma said bitterly. "Or drink it. $3,000 won't save his ranch. It'll just delay the inevitable."
"I know, but it's the price of Clara's freedom, so we pay it." Elias looked at Emma directly. "You stood up for your sister. You did the hard thing. Now let me help you finish it." Emma's throat tightened. "Thank you. I don't know how to—" "You thank me by making sure Clara finds her place here, by helping her build something beyond just survival." Elias closed the ledger. "And by continuing to do what you do, tell the truth, work hard, and refuse to disappear even when it would be easier." The next day, the agreement was signed. $3,000 in exchange for a voided contract and Clara's complete freedom from any obligation to Reeves or her father. Her father took the money with shaking hands and left without looking at either daughter. Reeves signed the papers with a sneer that suggested he'd gotten exactly what he wanted, cash instead of the complication of an unwilling wife. And Clara stood between Emma and Colton, legally free for the first time in her life.
"What do I do now?" Clara asked quietly after everyone had left. "I don't have skills like you. I can't work land or manage cattle. I was trained to be decorative and useful only in parlors." "Then you learn something new," Emma said. "You figure out what you're good at beyond being decorative, and you build from there. But I don't know where to start."
"Neither did I when I got here. But Clara, you're smart. You're capable. You just haven't been allowed to prove it yet." Emma squeezed her sister's hand. "So now you get to find out who you actually are, without father controlling it, without Reeves owning it. Just you figuring out what you want."
Clara's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so scared, Emma, of everything, of being useless, of being a burden, of not being worth the $3,000 you spent saving me."
"You're worth infinitely more than $3,000, Emma said fiercely. "And you're not useless. You're just untested. There's a difference." Over the following weeks, Clara slowly began to find her footing. Mrs. Chen taught her practical household management, not parlor hosting, but actual accounting and organization. Marcus showed her the basics of ranch record keeping. And surprisingly, Clara had a head for numbers that no one had ever discovered because no one had ever let her try.
I like this, Clara admitted to Emma one evening. They were in the study working through supply ledgers. The numbers, the organization, making things balance. You're good at it, Emma said, looking at Clara's neat columns and careful calculations. Better than me. That's because you're better at the physical work. But Emma, I think I might actually be useful at this, at the business side. Clara looked up. Do you think Elias would let me help? Really help? Not just practice?
I think Elias would be thrilled. He complains constantly about managing the books himself. So Clara started helping with the ranch finances, started finding inefficiencies and suggesting improvements, started becoming someone beyond the decorative daughter their father had tried to sell. And Emma watched her sister transform from a girl who'd been valued only for beauty into a woman who was valued for competence, and felt something fierce and proud take root in her chest. They'd both been invisible in different ways, both been reduced to what they could provide rather than who they were. But here, in this place Emma had stumbled into through honesty and desperation, they were both becoming something more, visible, valued, and finally, impossibly, beginning to believe they deserved to be both. The real storm came not from outside enemies, but from buried truth. It started with a package. Small wooden box, no return address, left at the ranch gates with Emma's name carved into the lid. One of the hands brought it to the house, looking confused, and Emma opened it in the kitchen with Mrs. Chen watching curiously. Inside were journals. 3 of them, leather-bound and worn, pages filled with feminine handwriting that Emma didn't recognize. A folded letter sat on top, and Emma opened it with hands that had started trembling without permission. The letter was from someone named Margaret Hayes, and the first line made Emma's blood run cold. These belonged to Caroline Mercer. She was my closest friend, and before she died, she made me promise to give them to someone who would understand what they mean. I think that person is you. Caroline Mercer, Colton's mother, dead for 15 years. Emma picked up the first journal and started reading. By the time Colton found her 2 hours later, Emma had made it through all 3 journals and was sitting at the kitchen table staring at nothing, her world fundamentally rearranged. Emma? Colton's voice was cautious. Mrs. Chen said you'd been in here for... What's wrong? Emma looked up at him, and whatever he saw in her face made him stop short. Your mother kept journals, Emma said quietly. Detailed journals about your father's business practices, about how he built the Mercer Empire. Colton went very still. What? Water rights, purchase claims, land acquisitions, all of it documented. Emma's voice sounded distant even to herself. Your father, Colton, your father built this empire on fraud. The words hung between them like something poisonous. Colton crossed the room slowly, sat down across from Emma, picked up one of the journals, started reading. His face went progressively paler. This can't be right, he said finally. This is... My father wouldn't... Your mother documented it, year by year, purchase by purchase. Every time your grandfather and then your father manipulated claims, filed false paperwork, redirected water rights that belonged to other ranchers. Emma's hands tightened on the journal in front of her. The Caro boundary dispute? That wasn't the first time, that was the pattern. Your family has been stealing land and water for 2 generations. Emma, Isham Chobi. The feud with the Caros, the hostility from neighboring ranches, the reason everyone treats the Mercers with suspicion. Emma looked at him directly. It's because your family earned it, through theft and manipulation and legal fraud. Colton looked like he might be sick. My mother knew this. She documented it. Why didn't she? She tried. According to the last journal, she confronted your father, told him she couldn't be part of this anymore, told him he needed to make things right. Emma's throat tightened. She died 6 months later. Riding accident, according to the official story. You think... Colton couldn't finish the sentence. I don't know what I think, but your mother was an excellent writer, and the timing is convenient. They sat in silence. The journals sat between them like evidence at a trial. Emma watched Colton process this, watched him try to reconcile the father he knew with the man described in his mother's careful handwriting. What do? He asked finally. We tell the truth. Emma, If this gets out, Colton's voice cracked. This destroys everything. The ranch, our reputation, every business relationship my father has built, everything. I know.
People will lose their jobs. We'll lose land. We might lose everything. I know that too. And you still think we should?
Yes.
Emma's voice was firm despite the fear churning in her gut. Because your mother documented this for a reason. Because she wanted someone to know. Because building an empire on lies and theft doesn't make it an empire. It makes it a house of cards. And eventually, it falls anyway. My father will never agree to this.
Then we do it without his agreement.
Colton stared at her. You'd destroy my family's legacy. I'd tell the truth. There's a difference. Emma reached across the table, caught his hand. Colton, I know this is hard. I know you love your father. But what your family did, what they took from people who couldn't fight back, that's not legacy. That's theft. And if we want to build something real here, something worth keeping, we can't build it on that foundation. What if telling the truth costs us everything? What if keeping the lie costs us more? They looked at each other across the journals and the truth they contained. Emma saw the moment Colton made his choice, saw it in the way his shoulders straightened, the way his jaw set, the way he squeezed her hand. We tell my father first, he said. Give him a chance to make this right voluntarily. Then we decide what happens next. Agreed. They found Elias in his study reviewing contracts. He looked up when they entered, surprise flickering across his face when he saw their expressions. What happened? He asked. Colton set the journals on the desk. These belong to Mother. They document how you and grandfather built the Mercer holdings, through fraud and theft and manipulated claims. Elias went very still. His eyes dropped to the journals, and Emma saw recognition and fear flash across his face. Where did you get these? His voice was carefully controlled. They were delivered today, by Margaret Hayes, apparently. Mother's friend. Colton's voice was steady, but Emma could hear the strain underneath. Are they true? Did you steal land and water rights from neighboring ranches? Elias didn't answer immediately. He picked up one of the journals, opened it, read a few lines. Then he set it down carefully and met his son's eyes. Yes, he said quietly. Most of it is true. The admission hung in the air like something with weight. Emma had expected denials, anger, deflection, not simple acknowledgement. Why? Colton demanded. Why would you? Because that's how it was done. How it's always been done out here. You find weakness and you exploit it. You see opportunity and you take it. You build power by any means necessary. Elias's voice went hard. Your grandfather taught me that, and I taught myself to be better at it than he was. Mother knew, Emma said quietly. She confronted you about it. Elias's expression flickered. She did. She wanted me to stop, to make restitution, to... He stopped, and for the first time since Emma had known him, Elias Mercer looked genuinely vulnerable. She wanted me to be someone I didn't know how to be. She died 6 months after that conversation, Colton said, voice tight. Riding accident. Yes. Was it an accident? The question cracked through the study like a whip. Elias's face went pale, then red. You think I killed your mother? His voice rose. You think I would... Colton, she was everything to me. Everything. Her death destroyed me in ways you can't possibly understand. Then tell me the truth. All of it. Elias stood, moved to the window, stared out at the land he'd built his empire on. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. It was an accident, a genuine accident. Your mother's horse spooked at a snake through her. She hit her head on a rock. She was dead before I reached her. He paused. But you're not entirely wrong to question it, because I've spent 15 years wondering if she took risks that day because she was done fighting me, done trying to change me, done living with what I'd become. The study went silent. Emma watched Elias's shoulders, saw them shaking slightly, and realized he was crying. Silently, but crying. I loved her, Elias said, voice breaking, and I failed her. Every single day of our marriage, I chose power over integrity. I chose winning over being right. I chose the empire over the woman who made the empire worth having. He turned back to face them, and his face was wet. So yes,
The journals are true. Yes, I built this ranch on fraud and theft. And yes, your mother died knowing I'd chosen that over her. That's the legacy you're inheriting, Colton. Corruption and loss, and a man who loved his wife but loved power more. Colton looked shattered. Emma moved to stand beside him, took his hand. You can make it right, she said quietly to Elias. It's not too late to make it right. Make it right, Elias repeated bitterly. You mean give back everything I built? Admit publicly that the Mercer Empire is a fraud? Destroy everything I've worked for?
I mean, stop building on lies, Emma said firmly. Acknowledge the theft. Make restitution to the families you hurt. Give back what was stolen. Yes, it'll cost you. Yes, you'll lose land and money and reputation, but at least it'll be honest loss instead of fraudulent gain. You have no idea what you're asking. I'm asking you to be the man your wife wanted you to be, even if it's 15 years too late. Elias stared at her. And if I refuse? Then we release the journals publicly. Let everyone know exactly how the Mercer Empire was built. Let the courts and the wronged families sort it out. Emma's voice was steady. I don't want to do that. I'd rather you chose honesty yourself. But one way or another, this truth is coming out. You'd destroy your own future, Colton's inheritance, everything you've built here. We'd rebuild on honest ground. That's worth more than keeping a corrupt empire. Elias looked at his son. Colton, you agree with this insanity? Colton took a breath. Mother documented this for a reason. She wanted someone to make it right. Maybe that someone is us. He squeezed Emma's hand. I'd rather have a small, honest ranch than a large, corrupt one. I'd rather work hard and build something real than maintain something rotten. You sound like her, Elias said quietly. You sound exactly like your mother. Good. Maybe I should have listened to her stories about integrity more carefully when I was younger. Elias sat down heavily in his chair. For a long moment, he just stared at the journals. Then he looked up. If I do this, if I actually make restitution, it'll destroy me financially. I'll lose most of the land, most of the holdings, most of the power that makes the Mercer name mean something in this territory. Yes, Emma said, but you'll be able to look at your son without shame. You'll be able to honor your wife's memory with action instead of regret. And maybe you'll be able to live with yourself in a way you haven't been able to for 15 years. You're asking me to give up everything. I'm asking you to give up the lie. What you built on honesty, that's what you get to keep. Elias closed his eyes. Sat in silence for so long, Emma thought he might refuse. Might choose the empire over truth, power over integrity, exactly like he'd been doing for decades. Then he opened his eyes and looked at both of them. I'll need the journals. All of them. I need to review every claim, every purchase, every manipulation. His voice was steady now, resolved. I need to identify every family we wronged and calculate fair restitution. It'll take time. You're actually doing this? Colton asked, voice full of disbelief. I'm actually doing this. Because your mother was right, because she deserved better than what I gave her, and because, he looked at Emma, because you're right too. A corrupt empire isn't worth inheriting, and I'm tired of defending my father's sins. Over the next 2 months, the Mercer Empire systematically dismantled itself. Elias hired lawyers and accountants, reviewed every land claim, every water right, every property acquisition going back 40 years, identified the fraudulent ones, which turned out to be most of them, and began the process of making restitution. The Carows got back not just the 50 yards Emma had identified, but 300 acres their grandfather had lost to manipulated claims. Catherine Carow accepted the return of land and the financial compensation with something close to shock. I never thought I'd see the day, she told Emma when the papers were signed. Elias Mercer admitting wrong and making it right. He's trying, Emma said. It's not easy for him. Nothing worth doing is easy, but it matters that he's doing it. Other families followed. The Hendersons got back water rights. The Mortons got back grazing land. The Prices got compensation for a fraudulent sale that had happened 30 years ago. One by one, Elias contacted wronged families, showed them the evidence from Caroline's journals, and offered restitution. Some accepted graciously. Some demanded more. Some refused to believe it wasn't a trap. But slowly, methodically, Elias worked through the list.
The Mercer holdings shrank, dramatically. By the time Elias finished, the ranch was less than a third of its original size. The house remained. The core grazing land remained. But the empire, the vast territorial holdings that had made the Mercer name synonymous with power, was gone. The neighboring ranchers watched with a mixture of suspicion and grudging respect. The investors fled, unwilling to be associated with a man who'd publicly admitted fraud. The hands who'd worked the distant properties found new employment, and the Mercer name became associated with something different than power. It became associated with restitution. Emma watched Elias through this transformation, watched him age under the weight of admitting decades of wrongdoing. Watched him meet with families he'd wronged and apologize, really apologize, for his father's sins and his own. Watched him give back piece by piece the empire he'd built his identity on. And she watched him become someone his wife might have recognized. "It hurts," Elias admitted to her one evening. They were in the study, smaller now, less imposing, reviewing the last of the restitution agreements. "Giving it all back, admitting I was wrong, being the man everyone whispers about." "What do they whisper?" Emma asked. "That I've gone soft, lost my edge, let my son's choice of bride corrupt my judgment." He smiled tiredly. "They're probably right about that last part. You're doing the right thing. That's not soft. That's strength." "Feels like weakness." Strength and weakness look similar from the outside sometimes. The difference is in why you're doing it. Emma paused. "Why are you doing this, Elias?" "Really?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Because I want my son to inherit something worth having. Not just land and money, but integrity, honesty, the ability to look people in the eye knowing you haven't stolen from them." He met her eyes. "And because for 15 years I've been living with the knowledge that my wife died disappointed in me. I can't change that. But I can try to become someone she would have been proud of, even if it's too late for her to see it." Emma's throat tightened. "I think she'd be proud of you now." "I hope so. Though I suspect she'd also tell me I'm an idiot for taking this long." "Probably, but she'd forgive you for it." "How do you know?" "Because that's what love does. It holds space for people to become better, even when it takes them too long to get there." During all this, life on the smaller Mercer ranch found its rhythm. Clara proved herself invaluable at managing the finances, finding efficiencies, and cutting costs in ways that kept them solvent, despite the dramatic loss of holdings. The ranch hands who stayed, the ones who valued honest work over association with power, became a tighter, more loyal crew. And Emma continued doing what she'd always done, working the land, telling the truth, and refusing to disappear. The wedding happened on a Tuesday in October. No grand affair, no elaborate preparations, just Emma and Colton standing beneath Montana sky with their diminished but honest family around them. Elias officiated. He'd gotten himself licensed specifically for this purpose. Clara stood beside Emma wearing a practical dress and a genuine smile. Marcus and Catherine Caro and a handful of ranch hands witnessed. And Emma wore the clothes she felt comfortable in. Simple dress, work boots, hair braided back. Because she'd learned that being chosen meant being chosen as she actually was, not as what someone wanted her to become. "You look beautiful," Colton whispered as they stood together. "I look like me." "That's what makes you beautiful." The vows were simple. No poetry, no elaborate promises, just honest words about choosing each other, about building something real, about facing whatever came next together. When Elias pronounced them married, Emma felt something shift inside her, not because of the legal words or the witness promises, but because she'd spent her whole life being invisible, and now she was standing in front of everyone who mattered, being completely, undeniably seen. And it didn't scare her anymore. The celebration was small. Food that Sarah had prepared with Clara's help, music from a hand who played fiddle surprisingly well, dancing in the yard under stars that didn't care about human ceremonies but bore witness anyway. Emma danced with Colton, with Marcus, even with Elias, who was stiff and awkward but trying. And she watched Clara dance with James Caro, Catherine's son, and saw something tentative and hopeful starting between them. "Your sister looks happy," Colton observed. "She looks alive. There's a difference." Emma watched Clara laugh at something James said. "She's figuring out who she is beyond what our father told her she had to be. Like you did. Like we both did. Just in different ways." Later, after the celebration wound down and the guests drifted away, Emma and Colton stood on the porch looking at the ranch that was now theirs to steward, smaller than it had been, honest in a way it hadn't been before. "Are you happy?" Colton asked quietly. Emma thought about that, about happiness and contentment and the difference between having everything and having what mattered. "I'm satisfied," she said finally. "I'm doing work that matters. I'm with someone who sees me. I'm building something real instead of maintaining something false. That's better than happy. That's purpose." "Purpose," Colton repeated. "I like that." "Me too." And 3 years later, Emma stood in almost the same spot, holding a daughter who had her eyes and Colton's stubbornness. They'd named her Evelyn, not after anyone, not carrying family weight, just a name they both liked. A name for a girl who would grow up knowing she was valued for who she was, not what she could provide. Clara had married James Caro the previous spring. The two ranches, Mercer and Caro, now operated in partnership, sharing resources and labor. What they'd lost in individual size, they'd gained in cooperation. And Clara ran the combined finances with a skill that made neighboring ranches ask for her advice. Elias had aged but softened. He spent his days working the land he'd kept, making amends where he could, and teaching Evelyn songs that Caroline had taught Colton. He would never be an easy man, but he'd become an honest one, and that counted for something. The territory still whispered about the Mercers, about the empire that had crumbled, about the admission of fraud and the restitution that had followed. Some saw it as weakness. Some saw it as redemption. Emma had stopped caring which. She'd learned that living honestly meant accepting judgment from people who valued power over integrity. And she'd decided she could live with that judgment. What she couldn't live with was the alternative. "You're thinking too hard," Colton said, coming to stand beside her. He put his arm around her waist, kissed Evelyn's head. "Just remembering," Emma said, "how I got here, everything that had to break for this to be possible." "Regrets?" "Some. I wish Clara hadn't suffered. I wish your mother had lived to see you become the man she hoped you'd be. I wish your father had chosen honesty earlier." She paused. "But no, I don't regret the path we took, even the hard parts. They made this possible." Evelyn made a small sound, and Emma adjusted her carefully. The baby watched the Montana landscape with serious eyes, and Emma wondered what she saw, what kind of world she'd grow up in, what lessons she'd learn about value and visibility and the cost of being real. "I want her to know she matters," Emma said quietly. "Not because of what she can do for anyone, not because of how she looks or who she marries or what she accomplishes, just because she's her. That should be enough." "It will be," Colton said, "because we'll make sure of it." "Promise?" "Promise." They stood together watching the sun drop toward the mountains. The ranch spread before them, smaller than it had been, honest in every acre, built on work instead of theft. It wasn't an empire. It probably never would be. But it was theirs, truly theirs, earned through truth and rebuilt on integrity. And that made it worth more than any empire could ever be. Emma had started as the forgotten daughter nobody saw, the invisible girl who worked and bled and was valued only for labor. She'd been chosen by accident, by a man tired of performance who saw truth where everyone else saw nothing. And she'd become the woman who'd stopped a war, rebuilt a family, and transformed a corrupt empire into something worth inheriting. Not through perfection, not through always knowing what to do, but through refusing to disappear, through telling truth even when it cost her, through choosing integrity over comfort and honesty over convenience. The Montana wind picked up, carrying the smell of grass and distance and possibility. Evelyn stirred in Emma's arms, and Emma held her closer. "You matter," she whispered to her daughter. "Not because of what you'll do or who you'll become, just because you're you, and that will always be enough." Colton tightened his arm around Emma. The ranch settled into evening, and Emma thought about survival and courage and the difference between being chosen and choosing yourself. Because that was the real lesson she'd learned. Being seen by others mattered. Being valued by others helped. Being chosen by someone who loved you made everything easier. But none of it meant anything if you didn't choose yourself first. If you didn't decide you were worth fighting for, worth standing up for, worth refusing to disappear for. Emma had been invisible for 23 years. And then she'd chosen to be seen, had chosen truth over safety, honesty over performance, reality over the comfortable lie that being invisible was easier. It hadn't been easy. It had cost her family, cost the Mercers their empire, cost everyone involved something they'd thought they couldn't afford to lose. But what they'd gained was worth it. They'd gained lives built on truth instead of lies. Relationships based on reality instead of performance. A future built on honest ground instead of fraudulent claims. And they'd gained the knowledge that survival wasn't enough. That building something real, something worth inheriting, required courage and sacrifice, and the willingness to destroy what was corrupt even when it was all you had. The frontier was hard. Montana didn't forgive weakness. And the life they'd built wasn't easy or perfect or without struggle. But it was real. And real, Emma had learned, was the only thing worth fighting for. She kissed her daughter's head, leaned against her husband, looked at the honest ranch they'd built from the ruins of an empire. And Emma Mercer, no longer Whitlock, no longer invisible, no longer the forgotten daughter, smiled. Because she'd learned the most important lesson of all. Power built on lies always crumbles. But truth built on courage lasts, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to disappear, even when, especially when, the whole world expects you to.